She didn't know the plane that brought her to Rome would be the last free choice she'd ever make. At 19, Evelyn Hart stepped off that aircraft believing she was saving her father's failing business. 3 hours later, she was standing in a marble fortress surrounded by armed men, staring at a silver-haired stranger who spoke her future like it was already written in stone. Don Lucien Verano didn't ask for her hand. He claimed it, not with violence, but with something far more suffocating. Absolute control over every exit, every outcome, every breath she thought was still hers. This is the story of a girl who was bought to settle a debt she never knew existed, and the man who built an empire on fear but found something he couldn't command. If you want to see how far this story travels, hit that like button and drop a comment with your city. Let's see where in the world you're watching from. Now let's begin. The Rome airport smelled like espresso and diesel fuel, a sharp contrast to the sweet Georgia air Evelyn had left behind 14 hours ago. She pulled her suitcase through the terminal, her father walking 3 paces ahead with his phone pressed to his ear, his voice tight and clipped in a way that made her stomach turn. Daniel Hart had been tense for months now, maybe longer, but she'd written it off as business stress, the kind of thing adults dealt with and teenagers weren't supposed to worry about. "Stay close," he muttered without looking back. She wanted to ask why. Wanted to ask a lot of things, but the set of his shoulders told her this wasn't the time. Outside, the June heat slammed into them like an open oven. Evelyn squinted against the sun, scanning for a taxi stand, but her father kept moving toward a row of black sedans parked in a no-stopping zone. 3 of them. Identical. Windows tinted so dark they looked like cutouts in reality. A man in a charcoal suit stepped out of the center vehicle. Tall, broad-shouldered, with the kind of face that had seen too much and forgotten how to smile about any of it. He nodded once at her father. "Mr. Hart." Daniel's hand twitched toward a handshake, then dropped. "We're here." "Yes. Don Verano is expecting you." Evelyn's fingers tightened on the handle of her suitcase. "Dad, who—" "Get in the car, Evie." The man in the suit opened the rear door. The interior was leather and cold air and silence. Her father climbed in without hesitation. Evelyn stood on the curb, her heart doing something weird and arrhythmic in her chest, her brain screaming that normal business meetings didn't involve convoys and armed drivers, because the man in the suit had a gun. She'd seen the bulge under his jacket when he reached for the door. "Miss Hart?" His voice was polite. "Empty." "Please." She got in. The door closed with a heavy, final sound, the kind that doesn't open from the inside without permission. Evelyn sat beside her father, her pulse hammering in her ears as the car pulled away from the curb. The 2 other sedans fell into formation, one ahead, one behind. A motorcade. "Dad, what's going on?" Daniel stared straight ahead. His jaw was clenched so tight she could see the muscle jumping beneath the skin. "Just let me handle this." "Handle what?" "Evelyn." His voice cracked on her name. "Please, not now." She'd never heard him sound like that, scared, actually genuinely scared. The convoy moved through Rome like it owned the streets. Traffic parted. Horns didn't honk. Pedestrians looked, then looked away fast, like they knew better than to make eye contact. Evelyn pressed her face to the window, watching the city blur past. Ancient stone and modern glass, laundry strung between balconies, a wedding party spilling out of a church in a cascade of white lace and laughter. Normal life, happening everywhere except inside this car. They drove for 30 minutes, leaving the tourist districts behind, winding through narrow streets that grew quieter, wealthier, more isolated. The buildings here had gates, guards, walls topped with iron spikes and security cameras. Finally, the convoy slowed. Ahead, a set of ornate wrought iron gates swung open, revealing a long driveway lined with cypress trees. At the end of it sat a villa that looked like it had been ripped straight out of a Renaissance painting. 3 stories of cream-colored stone, terracotta roof tiles, arched windows framed by dark shutters. Beautiful. Imposing. Surrounded by manicured gardens and men with earpieces. The car stopped in a circular courtyard dominated by a marble fountain. Evelyn's door opened before she could reach for the handle. "This way." The man in the suit gestured toward the villa's entrance. Her father was already moving, his shoulders hunched like he was walking into a courtroom. Evelyn followed, her legs shaky, her mind racing through every possible explanation and landing on none that made sense. Inside, the villa was cool and dim, all polished stone floors and frescoed ceilings. A woman in a black dress materialized from a side corridor, took their luggage without a word, and disappeared. Another man, older, gray-haired, with the calm, watchful eyes of someone who'd spent a lifetime evaluating threats, led them down a hallway lined with oil paintings of stern-faced men in outdated suits. They stopped at a set of double doors carved with intricate scrollwork. The gray-haired man knocked once, then pushed them open. The room beyond was a study. Floor-to-ceiling bookshelves, a massive oak desk, leather chairs arranged near a cold fireplace. Sunlight slanted through tall windows, illuminating dust motes and the man standing behind the desk. Don Lucien Verano. Evelyn had no idea who he was, but she knew power when she saw it. He was older, late 60s maybe, with silver hair swept back from a face that might have been handsome once but had hardened into something more permanent. Something carved. He wore a tailored gray suit that probably cost more than her father's car, and he didn't move when they entered, didn't need to. The room reorganized itself around him. Daniel. His voice was quiet, accented, the kind of quiet that made you lean in to listen. You brought her. It wasn't a question. Her father's hands were shaking. Mr. Verano, Don Verano, the man corrected gently. We've known each other long enough for proper address, I think. Don Verano. Her father swallowed hard. I need more time. Lucien Verano's gaze shifted to Evelyn. She felt it like a weight. Not leering, not cruel, just absolute. Assessing, cataloging. She stood straighter, her chin lifting on instinct, and something flickered in his expression. Amusement, maybe. Or interest. More time, Lucien repeated, still looking at Evelyn. You've had 3 years, Daniel. 3 years of extensions, renegotiations, and second chances. I've been extraordinarily patient. I know, and I'm grateful. Grateful. Lucien's lips twitched. Not quite a smile. Gratitude doesn't pay debts. Evelyn's voice came out smaller than she wanted. What debt? Her father flinched. Lucien's attention settled fully on her now, and it was like standing in a spotlight. Your father hasn't told you. Told me what? Evie, don't. Told me what? She rounded on her father, anger flaring hot and sudden in her chest. You said this was a business meeting. You said we were meeting an investor who could help save the company. Daniel's face crumpled. It's complicated. It's quite simple, actually. Lucien moved around the desk with unhurried grace, his hands clasped behind his back. Your father borrowed money from my organization, a substantial amount. He used it to cover gambling losses, failed investments, and a lifestyle he could no longer afford. The terms were clear, the interest was fair, and the deadline has passed. The room tilted. Evelyn grabbed the back of a chair to steady herself. How much? $2.4 million, Lucien said calmly, plus accumulated interest. Roughly $3.1 million as of today. Her father made a choking sound. Evelyn's brain stuttered. $3 million. They didn't have $3 million. They didn't have $300,000. The house back in Georgia had a second mortgage. Her college fund was gone. She'd thought it was the economy, bad luck, the restaurant industry struggling post-pandemic. She hadn't known her father was drowning. I don't understand. Her voice sounded distant, like it was coming from underwater. Why did you bring me here? Lucien tilted his head, studying her with the detached curiosity of a scientist examining a specimen. Because your father offered you as collateral. The words didn't land at first. They hovered in the air, nonsensical, impossible. Then they sank in like lead weights. He what? No. Her father lunged forward, his face red, his hands outstretched. No, that's not... I didn't... You signed the contract, Daniel. Lucien's voice didn't rise. It didn't need to. Page 7, Clause 12. In the event of default, you agreed to provide your daughter a settlement. Evelyn's knees buckled. She sat down hard in the chair, her hands gripping the armrests, her lungs forgetting how to pull in air. Her father was crying, actual tears streaming down his face. I didn't think it would come to this. I thought I'd have the money. You thought you could gamble your way out of a gambling debt. Lucien's tone was almost pitying. Men like you always do. Please. Daniel dropped to his knees. Actually dropped, right there on the marble floor, his hands clasped like he was begging for mercy from something bigger than himself. Please, she's my daughter. She's 19. She has her whole life ahead of her. Take the house. Take the business. Take everything I own. You own nothing I want, Lucienne said flatly. Except her. Evelyn's vision blurred. This wasn't real. Couldn't be real. People didn't get sold to pay debts, not in America, not in the 21st century. This was Rome, not some medieval nightmare. She forced herself to speak. You can't do this. Lucian's gaze returned to her. I can. I am. I'll go to the police. The police in Rome have no jurisdiction over contracts signed in international waters. He gestured to a leather folder on the desk. Your father signed that document aboard my yacht 3 years ago, under maritime law. It's binding. That's insane. It's legal. It's human trafficking. It's debt settlement. Lucian's expression didn't change. And you are not being trafficked. You will be married to me, live in comfort, and want for nothing. Your father's debt will be erased. He will return to Georgia with his life intact. This is the most humane solution available. Married. The word detonated in her brain like a grenade. You're insane, she whispered. I'm pragmatic. Lucien walked to a sideboard and poured himself 2 fingers of amber liquid from a crystal decanter. He didn't offer her any. Your father gambled with borrowed money, lost, and now the bill has come due. You are the currency he chose. She looked at her father, still kneeling, still sobbing. Dad, tell me he's lying. Daniel couldn't meet her eyes. Tell me! I'm sorry. His voice broke. I'm so sorry, Evie. I didn't know what else to do. The room spun. Evelyn stood abruptly, her chair scraping against the floor. No, absolutely not. I'm leaving. Right now. She made it 3 steps toward the door before it opened and the gray-haired man stepped inside. His posture relaxed but unmistakably blocking her exit. Lucien took a sip of his drink. Sit down, Evelyn. Go to hell. Sit down. Something in his voice stopped her cold. Not volume, he still hadn't raised it, but certainty. The kind of certainty that came from never being disobeyed. She sat. Lucien set his glass down and clasped his hands behind his back again, his gaze level and unwavering. Let me be very clear about your options. You can refuse this arrangement. If you do, your father will be killed. Not quickly, not mercifully. He will suffer in ways that will make him beg for death, and it will not come until I am satisfied that the message has been sent. His body will be found in pieces, and his name will become a cautionary tale. Daniel sobbed harder. Alternatively, Lucien continued, his tone conversational, you can accept. You will marry me in a private ceremony. You will live here, in this villa, as my wife. You will be treated with respect. You will have access to education, resources, and a standard of living most people only dream of. Your father will go home alive and unharmed. His debt will be forgiven. And in time, you may even come to appreciate the life you've been given. Evelyn's hands were shaking so hard she had to clench them into fists. That's not a choice. That's extortion. It's a choice, Lucien said calmly. Perhaps not a fair one, but a choice nonetheless. She wanted to scream, wanted to flip the desk, shatter the windows, claw her way out of this nightmare. But the gray-haired man was still in the doorway, and there were armed guards outside. And she was 19 years old in a foreign country with no money, no phone, and no idea how to even begin fighting this. How long? Her voice came out flat. Dead. Lucien raised an eyebrow. How long what? How long do I have to be married to you? Until death. He said it like it was obvious. Marriage is a permanent arrangement, Evelyn. You're 60-something years old. 67. So I'm supposed to just, what? Be your wife until you die? Then I'm free? You'll be a widow, Lucien corrected, with considerable inheritance and social standing. Yes, she laughed. It came out bitter and broken. You've thought of everything. I always do. Evelyn looked at her father one last time. He was still on the floor, his face buried in his hands, his shoulders heaving. The man who'd taught her to ride a bike, who'd stayed up all night helping her build a volcano for the science fair. who'd cried at her high school graduation, who'd sold her to a monster to save his own skin. "I need time to think," she said. "You have until tomorrow morning," Lucien replied. 9 o'clock. Meet me in the garden. You'll give me your answer then. And if I say no?" His expression didn't change. "Then your father dies, and you'll spend the rest of your life knowing you could have saved him." They put her in a bedroom on the second floor, large, airy, decorated in soft creams and golds, a 4-poster bed with silk sheets, a balcony overlooking the gardens, a bathroom with marble counters, and a tub big enough to drown in, a prison with a view. Evelyn sat on the edge of the bed and stared at her hands. They were still shaking. She didn't think they'd ever stop. Someone knocked. "Go away." The door opened anyway. A woman stepped inside. Mid-40s, dark hair pulled into a tight bun, wearing the same black dress as the woman who'd taken their luggage. She carried a tray with food Evelyn didn't want and wouldn't eat. "Don Verano thought you might be hungry." "I'm not." The woman set the tray on a side table anyway. "You should eat. It will be a long night." "Who are you?" "My name is Gabriella. I manage the household." Evelyn laughed bitterly. "The household? Is that what we're calling a mafia compound?" Gabriella's expression didn't flicker. "Don Verano prefers the term estate." "I'm sure he does." The woman moved to the wardrobe and opened it, revealing a row of dresses Evelyn had never seen before. Expensive, tailored, in her exact size. "How did he—" "Your father provided measurements," Gabriella said calmly. "Don Verano wanted you to have appropriate clothing." "Appropriate for what? My own captivity?" "For your new life." Evelyn wanted to throw something, wanted to scream until her throat bled, but Gabriella just stood there, patient and unshakable, like she'd had this conversation 100 times before. "Has he done this before?" Evelyn asked quietly. "Forced someone to marry him?" "No." Gabriella closed the wardrobe. "You're the first." "Lucky me. You could be dead." The woman's voice was still calm, but there was an edge to it now. Something sharp. "Your father could be dead. Instead, you're here, alive, fed, safe." "I'm not safe. I'm owned." "Ownership and safety are not mutually exclusive." Evelyn stared at her. "Do you actually believe that?" Gabriella's gaze was steady. "I've worked for Don Verano for 23 years. In that time, I've seen him kill 7 men. All of them deserved it. I've also seen him pay for a stranger's cancer treatment because the man reminded him of his father. He is not a good man, Miss Hart, but he is not needlessly cruel. If you accept this marriage, you will be treated well." "I don't want to be treated well. I want to go home." "Home to what?" Gabriella tilted her head. "A father who sold you? A life built on lies and debt? You have no home anymore, Miss Hart. Only choices about where you go from here." She left before Evelyn could respond. The food sat untouched. The sun set. The villa grew quiet. Evelyn stood on the balcony and looked out at the gardens below. Lanterns had been lit along the pathways, casting warm pools of light across the manicured lawns. In the distance, she could see the city, Rome, sprawling and glittering and full of people living normal lives. She thought about jumping. The balcony was high enough. It would be quick. But then her father would die. And maybe that was the point. Maybe that was the trap. Lucien Verano didn't need chains or locked doors. He had something better. Leverage. Guilt. The certainty that she'd spend the rest of her life haunted by the choice she didn't make. She went back inside and lay on the bed, staring at the ceiling. At some point, she must have slept, because when she opened her eyes again, pale morning light was filtering through the curtains. Her phone, left on the nightstand, read 8:47 a.m. 13 minutes. She dressed in jeans and a t-shirt from her suitcase, refusing to touch the clothes in the wardrobe, brushed her teeth, pulled her hair into a ponytail. At 8:59, she walked downstairs. The gray-haired man was waiting in the foyer. "This way." He led her through the villa and out a side door into the gardens. The morning was already warm, the air thick with the scent of jasmine and roses. Gravel crunched under her feet as they followed a path deeper into the estate, past hedges trimmed into geometric shapes and fountains that burbled softly. Lucien Verano stood beside a koi pond, his hands in his pockets, watching the fish glide through the water. He wore dark slacks and a white shirt with the sleeves rolled to his elbows. No tie, no jacket. Almost casual. He didn't turn when she approached. "Your answer," he said. Evelyn's throat was dry. Her heart was a drumbeat. Her hands were fists. "If I say yes," she began slowly, "I want conditions." Now he turned, one eyebrow raised. "You're negotiating?" "You said I have a choice, so I'm choosing the terms." Something that might have been amusement crossed his face. "Go on." "My father never contacts me again. Ever. I don't want letters, calls, nothing. He made his choice. Now he can live with it." Lucien nodded. "Agreed." "I want access to education. I was supposed to start college this fall. I want to finish my degree." "You'll have tutors. The best available." "I want my own money. Not an allowance. Actual financial independence. You'll have an account in your name, managed by my advisors, but accessible to you." She swallowed hard. "And I want you to promise you won't hurt me." His expression shifted, became something harder to read. "I will never lay a hand on you in anger, Evelyn. You have my word." "Your word doesn't mean much to me." "Then you'll have to learn to trust it." She almost laughed. Trust. As if that was possible. But she was out of options, out of time, out of roads that didn't end in her father's blood. "Fine," she said. The word tasted like ash. "I'll marry you." Lucien studied her for a long moment, his gaze unreadable. Then he extended his hand. She stared at it, shook her head. "No." "No?" "I'll marry you, but I won't pretend this is anything other than what it is. You don't get my hand. You don't get my smile. You get compliance, that's all." For the first time since she'd met him, Lucien Verano smiled. It was small, almost invisible, but it was there. "Fair enough," he said. And just like that, Evelyn Hart's life ended. The wedding happened 3 days later. No guests, no flowers, no music. Just Evelyn in a white dress she hadn't chosen, standing in a room she didn't recognize, while a man she'd never met before recited words in Italian that bound her to a stranger forever. Lucien stood beside her in a black suit, his posture relaxed, his expression unreadable. When the officiant asked if he took Evelyn as his wife, he said, "Si," without hesitation. When they asked her the same question, the word stuck in her throat like a fishhook. Lucien's hand found hers, squeezed once, not gentle, a reminder. "Si," she whispered. The officiant pronounced them married. No one clapped, no one kissed. Lucien released her hand and turned to shake hands with the gray-haired man, whose name she'd learned was Marco. Then he walked out of the room like he had somewhere more important to be. Evelyn stood there in her white dress, alone, married, and completely hollow. Gabriella appeared at her elbow. "Come, I'll help you change." "Into what?" "Something more comfortable. The Don doesn't expect you to wear that all day." Evelyn followed her upstairs, her legs moving on autopilot. The dress came off. A simple linen shift replaced it. Gabriella folded the wedding gown with efficient, practiced movements and hung it in the wardrobe like it was any other piece of clothing. "What happens now?" Evelyn asked. Gabriella paused, her hands smoothing the fabric. "Now you learn to live here." "That's not an answer." "It's the only one I have." The door closed. Evelyn was alone again. She spent the rest of the day on the balcony, watching the sun track across the sky. No one came to check on her. No one brought food. It was like the villa had swallowed her whole and forgotten she existed. At 7 o'clock, there was a knock. "Come in," she said, too tired to fight. Marco stepped inside. "Don Verano requests your presence at dinner." "Tell him I'm not hungry." "It wasn't a request, Mrs. Verano." The name hit her like a slap. Mrs. Verano. She wanted to vomit. "Fine." She followed Marco downstairs to a dining room she hadn't seen before. Long table, crystal chandelier, paintings of landscapes that probably cost more than her father's house. Lucien sat at the head of the table, a glass of red wine in one hand, reading something on a tablet. He looked up when she entered. "Sit." She sat at the opposite end, as far from him as the table allowed. A staff member, young, male, nervous, brought out plates. Pasta with some kind of cream sauce, grilled vegetables, bread that smelled like heaven. Evelyn's stomach growled despite herself. Lucien set down his tablet. You didn't eat today. I wasn't hungry. You're lying. She stabbed a piece of pasta with more force than necessary. Fine. I didn't want to eat. Starving yourself accomplishes nothing. Neither does this conversation. He took a sip of wine, watching her over the rim of the glass. You're angry. Congratulations. You're perceptive. Anger's natural, expected even, but it's not productive. Evelyn set down her fork. You know what's not productive? Forcing a teenager to marry you to pay off her father's gambling debt. That's pretty fucking unproductive. The staff member froze mid-step. Marco, standing by the door, shifted slightly. Lucian's expression didn't change. You're not a teenager. You're 19. Legally an adult. Barely. Barely is still legally. He leaned back in his chair. And you agreed to this arrangement of your own free will. Free will, she laughed, sharp and bitter. Is that what you call it when the alternative is watching my father get tortured to death? I call it a choice. You made one. Now you live with it. Easy for you to say. You're not the one who got sold. No, Lucien agreed. I'm the one who bought you, and I paid a very high price. The words hung in the air like smoke. Evelyn's hands clenched into fists under the table. I'm not property. You're my wife, legally, publicly, permanently. He set his wine glass down with deliberate care. The sooner you accept that, the easier this will be. For who? You. For both of us. She shoved her chair back and stood. I'm not hungry anymore. Sit down. No. Evelyn. His voice dropped an octave. Sit. Down. Or what? You'll kill me too? Add me to your body count? Lucien stood slowly, his movements unhurried but absolute. He walked around the table, closing the distance between them. Evelyn's heart hammered against her ribs, but she refused to step back, refused to give him the satisfaction. He stopped a foot away, close enough that she could smell his cologne, something dark and expensive that made her think of libraries and old money. I will never kill you, he said quietly, but I will not tolerate disrespect in my own home. You are angry, I understand, but you will learn to control it. You will learn to be civil, and you will learn that defiance without purpose is just noise. She met his gaze, held it. And if I don't? Then you'll be very unhappy for a very long time. They stood there locked in silent combat, neither willing to blink first. Finally, Evelyn sat. Not because she wanted to, because she was exhausted, because fighting every single battle would break her faster than compliance. Lucien then returned to his seat. They finished dinner in silence. Teat. The days blurred together after that. Evelyn woke up, ate breakfast alone, spent hours wandering the villa like a ghost. The estate was massive, 20 rooms, 3 floors, gardens that stretched for acres. She mapped every hallway, every door, every possible exit. They were all guarded. Marco was always nearby. Not hovering, not threatening, just present. A constant reminder that she wasn't really alone. That someone was always watching. On the 4th day, Gabriella knocked on her door at 8 in the morning. Don Verano wants to see you in his office. Evelyn's stomach dropped. Why? He didn't say. She followed Gabriella downstairs, her mind racing through possibilities. Maybe he'd changed his mind. Maybe he was sending her home. Maybe... The office door was open. Lucien sat behind his desk, writing something in a leather-bound notebook. He didn't look up when she entered. Close the door. She did. Sit. She sat. He finished whatever he was writing, capped his pen, and finally looked at her. How are you settling in? I'm a prisoner in a foreign country. How do you think I'm settling in? You're not a prisoner. You're free to move about the estate. The estate, not the city, not the country, the estate. Rome is dangerous for someone without protection. I had protection. It was called a passport and a plane ticket. Lucien's jaw tightened. Your passport is in my safe. Your ticket is void, and your father signed over legal guardianship to me as part of the contract. Evelyn felt the blood drain from her face. Guardianship. I'm 19. In Italy, legal adulthood is 18. But your father signed the documents in international waters, under maritime law, which allows for extended guardianship in cases of debt settlement. You are legally My responsibility. You mean your property? I mean my wife. He stood and walked to the window, his hands clasped behind his back. I didn't bring you here to punish you, Evelyn. I brought you here because your father left me no other option. He gambled, he lost, and he offered you as payment. I accepted. That is the beginning and end of this arrangement. So what now? Her voice cracked. I just exist here for the rest of my life? You adapt. He turned to face her. You learn, you grow, and eventually you may even find that this life has its advantages. Advantages? She laughed bitterly. Like what? Being married to a man 3 times my age? I'm not 3 times your age. You're close enough. I'm 67. You're 19. That's a 48-year difference, not 3 times. Oh well, that makes it so much better. Lucian's expression hardened. I didn't choose this situation any more than you did, but I'm making the best of it. I suggest you do the same. By doing what? Playing house? Pretending this is normal? By learning to survive. He walked back to his desk and opened a drawer, pulling out a folder. You wanted education. I've hired tutors. They'll begin next week. Italian, literature, history, and political science. You'll also have a self-defense instructor. Evelyn blinked. Self-defense? You're the wife of a powerful man. That makes you a target. You need to know how to protect yourself. Against who? Against anyone who decides you're worth more as leverage than as a person. He slid the folder across the desk. These are your instructor's credentials. Review them. If you have objections, voice them now. She stared at the folder, didn't touch it. Why are you doing this? Because ignorance is a vulnerability, and I don't tolerate vulnerabilities in my household. Your household, your wife, your property. Do you hear yourself? Lucian leaned forward, his palms flat on the desk. I hear myself perfectly. Do you hear yourself? You keep calling yourself a victim, a prisoner, property. But you're still breathing, still fed, still safe. That's more than your father's other creditors would have given you. Other creditors? His eyes narrowed. You didn't know. Know what? Lucien sat back down, his expression carefully neutral. Your father didn't just owe me money. He owed several organizations. Mine was the largest debt, but not the only one. If I hadn't taken you as payment, someone else would have, and they would not have been as considerate. The room tilted. Evelyn gripped the edge of the desk. You're lying. I don't lie. It's inefficient. He opened another drawer and pulled out a stack of documents. These are copies of your father's other loans. If you'd like, you can read them. See exactly how many people wanted a piece of you. She didn't take the documents. Couldn't. Her hands were shaking too hard. He sold me to everyone, she whispered. He tried. Lucien's voice was almost gentle. I bought out the other contracts. You belong to me and only me. That was the agreement. You're not making this better. I'm not trying to make it better. I'm trying to make it clear. He gathered the documents and put them away. Your father is a coward and a fool. He destroyed his own life and tried to destroy yours to save himself. I gave you an alternative. It's not perfect. It's not fair. But it's survivable. Evelyn stood on shaking legs. I need to leave. You're free to go. She made it to the door before his voice stopped her. Evelyn. She didn't turn around. Your lessons start Monday, 8 a.m. Don't be late. She fled. The tutors arrived exactly on schedule. 3 of them. A middle-aged woman named Professoressa Ricci, who taught Italian with the patience of a saint. A younger man, early 30s, nervous energy, too much coffee, named Dario, who handled literature and history. And a woman in her 50s named Signora Bellini, who taught political science like it was a blood sport. The self-defense instructor was a different beast entirely. His name was Anton. 6'4", shaved head, shoulders like a bull. He spoke maybe 10 words during their first session, and 9 of them were corrections to her stance. Feet wider. Hands up. Again. He taught her how to break a wrist hold, how to strike the soft parts of the body, throat, eyes, groin, how to move when cornered, how to think past the panic. It was brutal, exhausting, and the first thing in weeks that made Evelyn feel like herself. After the 3rd session, she was drenched in sweat, her muscles screaming, her knuckles bruised from hitting the practice dummy. Anton handed her a towel without comment. "You're getting better," he said. "I'm getting tired." "Same thing." He packed up his gear. "Pain is just weakness trying to leave." "That's the dumbest thing I've ever heard." He grinned. "Doesn't make it less true." She almost smiled, caught herself, didn't want to give anyone in this place the satisfaction of seeing her happy. But Anton noticed. "It's okay, you know." "What is?" "To not hate every second of your life here." Evelyn's jaw tightened. "Easy for you to say." "Is it?" He zipped his bag. "I grew up in Chechnya, lost my family in the wars, came here with nothing. Don Verano gave me a job, a home, a purpose. I'm not saying you have to be grateful. I'm just saying survival doesn't have to mean suffering." He left before she could respond. A month passed, then two. The lessons continued. Evelyn's Italian improved from stumbling to functional. She read Dante and Machiavelli and learned that power was a language all its own. Signora Bellini taught her how to read a room, how to identify alliances and threats, how to survive in a world where every conversation was a negotiation. Anton taught her how to break a nose with the heel of her palm. She learned, she adapted, she survived, but she didn't stop hating Lucien. They rarely spoke. He was gone most days. Meetings, business, things he didn't explain and she didn't ask about. When he was home, they ate dinner together in silence. A ritual. An obligation. Nothing more. Until the night she asked the question she'd been swallowing for weeks. They were halfway through the meal, some kind of fish, roasted vegetables, wine she wasn't allowed to drink, when she set down her fork and looked at him directly. "Why haven't you touched me?" Lucien paused mid-bite, set down his fork. "Excuse me?" "We've been married for 2 months. You haven't so much as held my hand since the wedding. Why?" His expression was unreadable. "Is that what you want?" "No, I'm asking why you don't." He took a sip of wine, considering. "Because I'm not interested in a wife who submits out of fear." "So you're just... what? Waiting for me to fall in love with you?" "No, I'm waiting for you to stop seeing me as the enemy. You forced me to marry you to pay off my father's debt. How am I supposed to see you?" "As someone who gave you a future when you had none." He leaned back in his chair. "Your father sold you, Evelyn, not me. I bought you. There's a difference." "Not from where I'm sitting." "Then adjust your perspective." She wanted to throw her plate at him. "You're unbelievable." "I'm honest." "Which is more than you can say for most people in your life." "My life?" She laughed bitterly. "I don't have a life. I have a cage with nice furniture. You have tutors, safety, resources, freedom within these walls. Freedom within walls is still captivity." Lucien stood abruptly, his chair scraping against the floor. "You want freedom? Fine. Let's test it." He walked out of the dining room. Evelyn sat there, confused, until Gabriella appeared. "Don Verano is waiting for you in the foyer." "Why?" "You'll have to ask him." Evelyn found him by the front door, car keys in hand. Marco stood nearby, his expression neutral. "Get in the car," Lucien said. "Where are we going?" "You wanted freedom. Let's see what you do with it." Her heart started to race. This was a test. Had to be. Some kind of trap. But she couldn't see the edges of it, couldn't figure out the angle. She got in the car. Lucien drove. No convoy. No guards. Just the two of them in a sleek black sedan, cutting through Rome's evening traffic. They drove for 20 minutes, the city lights blurring past, until he pulled over in a busy district Evelyn didn't recognize. He turned off the engine. "Get out." She did. They were standing in a crowded piazza. Tourists everywhere, locals at sidewalk cafes, street performers juggling fire. Normal life. The kind she'd forgotten existed. Lucien handed her roll of euro bills. "There's 5,000 here. The nearest police station is 3 blocks that way." He pointed. "The American embassy is a 15-minute cab ride north, or you can stay here, blend into the crowd, and disappear. I won't stop you." Evelyn stared at the money, at him. "What's the catch?" "No catch. You wanted freedom. Take it." "And my father?" "I'll consider the debt settled. He lives." Her hands shook as she took the money. "You're serious." I don't make offers I don't mean. She looked around the piazza. All these people, all these exits. She could run. Right now. Disappear into the crowd. Go to the embassy. Get a flight home. Home to what? Her father's trailer. His shame. His debts. A life she'd never wanted in the first place. Or she could run and never look back. Start over somewhere new. Become someone else. But then what? 5,000 euros wouldn't last long. She had no job, no degree, no references. She'd be a 19-year-old American girl, alone in Europe with nothing but the clothes on her back and a stack of cash that would run out in a month. And Lucienne was offering her something else. Something she hated to admit made a twisted kind of sense. Stability, safety, a future. Just not the one she'd imagined. She turned to look at him. He stood with his hands in his pockets, watching her with that same unreadable expression. Not pushing, not pleading, just waiting. Why? She asked. Why would you let me go? Because I don't want a wife who stays out of obligation. I want one who chooses to be here. That's insane. It's honest. Evelyn looked at the money in her hands, at the piazza, at all the lives she could have if she just walked away. Then she looked at Lucian Verano, the man who'd bought her, married her, and somehow given her the first real choice she'd had in months. She handed the money back. I'm not staying because I want to be here, she said quietly. I'm staying because everywhere else is worse. Lucienne took the money, nodded once. That's enough for now. They got back in the car. Neither of them spoke on the drive home. Eek. Something shifted after that night. Evelyn couldn't name it, couldn't point to a specific moment, but the air between them was different. Less hostile, more careful. Lucienne started eating breakfast with her. Not every morning, but sometimes. They'd sit in the sunroom, coffee and pastries between them, reading in companionable silence. He asked about her lessons, actually listened when she answered. When she mentioned she missed running, used to do 5 miles every morning back home, he had a treadmill installed in the gym. Then, a week later, told her she could run the estate grounds if Anton accompanied her. Small things, incremental shifts. She still didn't trust him, but she stopped flinching when he entered a room. 3 months in, Signora Bellini brought a guest to their political science lesson. A woman in her early 40s, sharp-eyed and sharper dressed, introduced as Contessa Adriana De Luca. She's here to teach you about social navigation, Bellini explained. Social navigation, Evelyn repeated. How to survive a room full of powerful people who want to destroy you, Adriana said with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. Shall we begin? The lessons were brutal, in a completely different way than Anton's. Adriana taught her how to read body language, how to weaponize a compliment, how to make an ally out of an enemy with nothing but the right words at the right time. You're the wife of Don Lucian Verano, Adriana said during one session. That means you're either a target or a threat. You need to decide which you'd rather be. What if I don't want to be either? Then you'll be a victim. And victims don't last long in this world. Evelyn learned to hold eye contact a beat longer than comfortable. To smile with her mouth, but not her eyes. To ask questions that sounded innocent but gathered information like a scalpel collecting tissue samples. She learned to be dangerous without ever raising her voice. And she was good at it, Adriana noticed. You have instincts for this. Natural talent. For what? Lying? For survival. Adriana leaned back in her chair. Most people in your position would have broken by now. But you're adapting, evolving. That's rare. I don't have a choice. Everyone has a choice. You're just smart enough to make the right ones. Evelyn didn't know if that was a compliment or an insult. 4 months in, Lucienne hosted a dinner party. Gabriella told her 3 days in advance. 15 guests, high profile. Don Verano expects you to attend. As what? A decoration? As his wife. Evelyn's stomach twisted. I don't know how to do this. Adriana has been preparing you for weeks. You'll be fine. The night of the dinner, Gabriella helped her dress. A midnight blue gown that fit like it had been painted on. Diamond earrings that probably cost more than a car. Hair swept into an elegant twist that made her look 10 years older. When Evelyn looked in the mirror, she barely recognized herself. Lucienne was waiting at the bottom of the stairs. He wore a black tuxedo, his silver hair perfectly styled, looking every inch the patriarch Adriana had described in her lessons. His eyes tracked her descent. You look beautiful. It was the first compliment he'd ever given her. Evelyn didn't know what to do with it. Thank you, she said stiffly. He offered his arm. She took it. The dining room had been transformed, crystal and silver gleaming under candlelight, wine already poured, 15 of the most intimidating people Evelyn had ever seen arranged around the table like chess pieces. Lucien introduced her to each one. Names she'd never remember, titles that meant power, eyes that evaluated her like she was a stock they were considering purchasing. She smiled, shook hands, remembered everything Adriana had taught her. They sat. Dinner began. The man to her left, some kind of finance minister, asked where she was from. Georgia, she said. The state, not the country. He laughed. And how are you enjoying Rome? It's beautiful, different from home. I imagine it must be quite an adjustment. There it was. The probe. Testing to see if she'd crack. Evelyn smiled. Every marriage is an adjustment, but I'm fortunate to have such a patient teacher. She glanced at Lucien. He was watching her, something approving in his expression. The minister moved on to safer topics. The woman across from her, a gallery owner dripping in jewelry, was less subtle. So young to be married to such a powerful man, you must have quite the story. Don't we all? Evelyn's smile didn't waver. Though I find the most interesting stories are the ones we don't tell at dinner parties. The woman's eyes narrowed. Then she laughed. I like her, Lucien. She has teeth. She does, Lucien agreed. Dinner continued. Evelyn navigated every conversation like Anton had taught her to navigate a fight. Identify the threat, control the distance, strike only when necessary. By dessert, she was exhausted. By coffee, she was something else. Exhilarated. She'd survived. More than that, she'd won. When the guests finally left, Lucien walked her back upstairs. They stopped outside her bedroom door. You did well tonight, he said. I didn't embarrass you, you mean? You impressed them. That's harder. Evelyn looked at him, really looked, for maybe the first time since the wedding. Tried to see past the monster she'd built in her head. What she saw was complicated, dangerous, yes. Controlling, absolutely. But also disciplined, restrained. A man who could have forced her into anything, but chose not to. Why didn't you prepare me better? She asked quietly. You knew that dinner would be a test. You could have warned me. Because warnings make people nervous. Nervous people make mistakes. He tucked a loose strand of hair behind her ear. The gesture was so unexpected, so gentle, that Evelyn froze. I knew you could handle it. I wanted you to know it too. His hand lingered a moment longer than necessary, then dropped. Good night, Evelyn. He walked away before she could respond. Evelyn stood in the hallway, her heart doing something strange and arrhythmic in her chest, her skin still warm where he'd touched her. She went inside, closed the door, leaned against it. This was bad. This was very, very bad. Because somewhere between the wedding and tonight, between the lessons and the dinners and the small, careful kindnesses, something had shifted. She didn't hate him anymore, and that terrified her more than anything else in this place. The next morning, Marco knocked on her door at 6 a.m. Don Verano needs you, now. Evelyn pulled on clothes, her mind racing. Something was wrong. Marco never came to her room, never looked this tense. She followed him downstairs to Lucien's office. The door was open. Inside, Lucien stood with 3 men she didn't recognize, all of them armed, all of them radiating the kind of violence that didn't need to be spoken. Lucien looked up when she entered. His expression was carved from stone. We have a problem. What kind of problem? The kind that requires you to leave Rome, today. Her blood went cold. Why? One of the men spoke, heavily accented English, Russian, maybe. Your father talked. About what? About you. Lucien's voice was flat, dead. About this arrangement. About where you are and who you belong to. One of my competitors now knows you exist, and they've decided you're worth more to them than to me. Evelyn's legs went weak. Someone's coming for me. Someone's already here. Lucien moved around the desk. There was an attempted breach last night. We stopped it. But they'll try again. So what do? We move you. Somewhere safe. Somewhere they can't find you. For how long? Lucian's jaw tightened. Until I eliminate the threat. The words hung in the air like a death sentence. You mean kill them? Evelyn said quietly. Yes. She should have been horrified, should have recoiled, but all she felt was a strange, cold clarity. How many? Does it matter? Yes. Lucian studied her. 7, maybe more depending on how deep the organization runs. 7 lives, because her father couldn't keep his mouth shut. When do I leave? 1 hour, pack light, essentials only. She turned to go. His voice stopped her. Evelyn, she looked back. I will fix this. His eyes were hard, absolute. No one touches what's mine. And despite everything, despite the fear and the anger and the impossibility of this entire situation, Evelyn believed him. She went upstairs to pack. Gabriella was already in her room pulling clothes from the wardrobe with efficient, practiced movements. Where am I going? Evelyn asked. Amalfi Coast, private villa, secure. Alone? Anton will accompany you, and Marco. Not Lucienne? Gabriella paused. Don Verano has work to do here. You mean killing. I mean protecting. Gabriella zipped the bag. He's protecting you. Try to remember that. The convoy left at 7:30. 3 cars this time. Evelyn in the middle vehicle with Marco, Anton in the lead car, 2 men she didn't know bringing up the rear. They drove south. Fast. The city gave way to countryside, then coastal roads that wound along cliffs overlooking the sea. It should have been beautiful. All Evelyn could think about was the men who tried to take her last night, the men Lucien was going to kill today. Because of her. They reached the villa by noon. It was smaller than the estate in Rome, only 1 floor built into the hillside with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the Mediterranean. Isolated, defensible. A prison with an ocean view. Anton did a security sweep. Marco checked the perimeter. Evelyn stood on the terrace and watched the waves crash against the rocks below. Her phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number. You're safe. Stay there. I'll come for you when it's done. L. She stared at the message, wanted to respond, didn't know what to say. Another text came through before she could decide. And Evelyn? Thank you for trusting me. She hadn't realized she did, but standing there on the terrace 1,000 miles from everything she'd known, waiting for a man she'd married under duress to kill 7 people to keep her safe. She realized the truth. Somewhere along the way, without meaning to, without wanting to, she'd stopped being his captive. She'd become his wife, and there was no going back from that. The phone slipped from her fingers, clattering onto the stone. Marco appeared at her elbow. You okay? Evelyn looked out at the endless blue water. No, she whispered. I don't think I am. But she stayed, because leaving wasn't an option anymore. Because Lucien Verano had bought her, married her, and now, somehow, impossibly, she was letting him protect her. And the worst part? She wanted him to. The realization settled over her like a burial shroud. This was the point of no return. This was where she stopped fighting and started surviving as someone. The villa on the Amalfi Coast was supposed to be sanctuary. 3 days in, it felt more like a grave with windows. Evelyn spent the first 24 hours pacing. The place was beautiful, all white marble and seafoam-colored walls, furniture that looked like it belonged in a museum, a kitchen stocked with food she couldn't bring herself to eat. But beauty didn't change the fact that she was trapped again. Different cage, same bars. Marco stationed himself by the front entrance like a piece of furniture. Anton patrolled the perimeter every 2 hours, his movements methodical, military. The 2 other guards, names she hadn't bothered learning, rotated shifts, their eyes constantly scanning the hills, the road, the water, waiting for an attack that hadn't come yet. Evelyn's phone stayed silent. No calls, no texts, nothing from Lucien since that last message 3 days ago. I'll come for you when it's done. She wondered what done looked like. 7 bodies? More? Did he do it himself or delegate? Did it matter? On the 4th morning, she woke to voices downstairs. Male, urgent. She pulled on clothes and descended to find Marco on his phone, his expression darker than she'd ever seen it. What's wrong? She asked. He held up a hand. Si. Capisco, si. He hung up, looked at her. That was Don Verano. Her heart kicked. Is he okay? He's alive. The situation in Rome is complicated. What does that mean? Marco's jaw tightened. It means the organization that came after you wasn't just 7 men. It was a network. And eliminating one branch activated 3 more. The floor seemed to tilt. So it's not over. No, and it won't be for a while. How long is a while? Weeks, maybe months. Evelyn's hands curled into fists. I can't stay here for months. You don't have a choice. There's always a choice. Not this time. Marco's voice gentled slightly. Don Verano is doing everything he can to end this. But until he does, you stay here. You stay safe. She wanted to argue, wanted to scream, but Marco's expression told her it would accomplish nothing. So she went back upstairs and stared at the ocean until her eyes burned. A week passed. Then 2. The villa became a routine. Wake up, eat breakfast, train with Anton. Study Italian with audio lessons Gabriella had packed. Stare at the ocean, sleep, repeat. Lucian called twice. Both times brief, his voice tight with exhaustion. Are you safe? Yes. Good. I'll call when I can. Click. No explanations, no reassurances. Just the sound of a man fighting a war she couldn't see. On the 15th day, Evelyn was in the kitchen making coffee when Anton appeared in the doorway, his expression grim. We have a problem. She set down the mug. What kind? Someone's asking questions in the village, about this villa, about who's staying here. Her blood went cold. How close? Close enough. He jerked his head toward the door. Marco wants you in the safe room. The what? Basement, reinforced. Come on. She followed him through the villa to a door she'd assumed was a closet. Inside, stairs descended into darkness. Anton flipped a switch, revealing a small concrete room with a cot, bottled water, and a single overhead bulb. You stay here until I come get you, he said. For how long? As long as it takes. He closed the door. The lock engaged with a heavy metallic click. Evelyn stood in the center of the room, her heart hammering, her breath coming too fast. The walls seemed to press in. No windows. No phone signal. Just concrete and darkness and the suffocating weight of not knowing. She sat on the cot, counted her breaths, tried not to think about what was happening upstairs. Time became meaningless. Could have been an hour. Could have been 5. Then she heard it. Gunfire, muffled by the concrete but unmistakable. 3 shots. A pause. 2 more. Then silence. Evelyn pressed herself against the wall, her pulse roaring in her ears. Someone had found them. Someone was upstairs right now, and Marco and Anton were either fighting or... No, she couldn't think like that. More shots. Closer this time. Then footsteps on the stairs. She grabbed the only weapon available, a metal folding chair, and positioned herself behind the door. If they came through, she'd have one chance. Anton had taught her how to swing for maximum damage, how to aim for the temple, the throat, the bridge of the nose. The lock clicked. The door swung open. Evelyn raised the chair. Jesus Christ, don't! Anton stood in the doorway, blood streaming from a cut above his eye, his shirt torn, but alive. She dropped the chair. What happened? 3 men. We handled it. He wiped blood from his face. But there's something you need to see. She followed him upstairs. The villa looked like a war zone. Bullet holes in the walls, broken glass everywhere. One of the guards, the younger one, she still didn't know his name, sat on the floor pressing a towel to his shoulder, his face gray with pain. Marco stood in the living room staring down at something on the floor. A body. Evelyn's stomach lurched. The man was maybe 30, dark hair, expensive suit now ruined by blood. His eyes stared at nothing. Who is he? She managed. Marco crouched down and pulled a phone from the dead man's pocket. Unlocked it. His expression went from grim to something worse. You need to see this. He held out the phone. The screen showed a text conversation. Recent. From today. Unknown. Is she there? Dead man. Yes. Confirmed visual. Unknown. Good. Extract her. Alive. The old man wants to talk to her himself. Evelyn's throat closed. The old man? Marco scrolled up, showed her an earlier message, a photo of her father, sitting in what looked like an expensive restaurant, wine glass in hand, smiling at the camera like he didn't have a care in the world. The message below it read, "Your investment is secure. She trusts Verano completely now. When do we move?" The room spun. Evelyn grabbed the edge of the table to keep from falling. "No!" "Keep reading," Marco said quietly. She scrolled, found more messages. Weeks of them. Her father coordinating with someone named Dimitri. Planning, strategizing, using her location, information only Lucian should have had, to set up this attack. But it was the final message that destroyed her. Your investment is secure. Investment, not daughter, not Evelyn. Investment. "He sold me twice," she whispered. Marco's expression was granite. "Looks like it." Anton appeared with a first aid kit. "We need to move. If these three don't report in, more will come." "Where?" Evelyn's voice sounded distant, disconnected. "Where am I supposed to go?" "Rome. Don Verano is arranging transport." "Lucien knows?" "He will in about 5 minutes." Marco was already dialing. "And when he finds out your father is behind this, he'll kill him." The words came out flat, empty. Marco met her eyes. Yes, she should have felt something. Horror, grief, conflict. All she felt was cold. "Good," she said. Tucked. The drive back to Rome took 4 hours. They left the villa burning behind them, Anton's orders, eliminate evidence, and took back roads through the mountains. Evelyn sat in the back seat, the dead man's phone clutched in her hands, reading the messages over and over until the words stopped making sense. Her father had orchestrated everything. The debt to Lucien was real, but the other organizations, the ones Lucien had supposedly bought her out from, those contracts had been fake. Fabrications. A way to make Lucien's offer seem like salvation instead of slavery. And it had worked. She'd believed she had no other choice, believed her father was a desperate fool, believed Lucien was the lesser evil. But her father had been playing a longer game. Use Lucien's protection to keep her safe while arranging a second sale to someone willing to pay more. Someone named Dimitri, who apparently wanted her alive and trusting Verano completely before extraction. Why? The messages didn't say. But Evelyn could guess: leverage, information, access to Lucien's operations through his wife. She'd been a Trojan horse and hadn't even known it. They reached Rome after midnight. The city was a blur of lights and shadows. Marco drove straight to the estate, through gates that closed behind them like a trap snapping shut. Lucien was waiting in the courtyard. He looked like he'd aged a decade in 2 weeks. Shadows under his eyes, stubble on his jaw. His shirt sleeves rolled up, blood, not his, she hoped, spattered on his collar. He crossed to the car before it fully stopped, pulled open her door. "Are you hurt?" Evelyn climbed out, handed him the phone. "Read it." He did. His expression went from concerned to murderous in the space of 3 messages. "Your father." "Yes. He's been working with Dmitry Volkov this entire time." "I don't know who that is." "He's the head of a Russian syndicate, one of my oldest rivals." Lucien's knuckles went white around the phone. "He wanted you as a way to get to me." "Looks like it." "Evelyn, don't..." Oh, she held up a hand. "Don't apologize. Don't tell me you'll handle it. Just tell me the truth. Did you know my father was playing both sides?" "No. If I had, he'd already be dead." "Will he be?" Lucien's eyes were black, empty. "Yes." "When?" "As soon as I find him." Evelyn nodded, felt nothing. "Good." Marco appeared with Anton. "We've got a problem." "Another one?" Lucien's voice could have cut glass. "Volkov knows she's back in Rome. He just sent this." Marco held up his own phone. The message was simple. "Return her, and I'll let you live. Keep her, and everyone you love dies." Lucien read it, deleted it. "He's bluffing." "Is he?" Marco's tone suggested otherwise. "He's got 40 men in the city, maybe more. We've got 20. If he decides to go to war, then we go to war." Lucien's voice was absolute. "No one takes what's mine." "She's not a possession. Anton muttered. She's my wife, same thing. Evelyn's hands clenched. I'm standing right here. Lucian turned to her. You need to go inside now. Stop giving me orders. Evelyn, this isn't a debate. You're right. It's not. She stepped closer. I'm not hiding in that house while you decide my future. I want to know the plan. The plan is to keep you alive. By doing what? Killing Volkov. If necessary. And my father? Lucian's jaw tightened. Also, if necessary. She should have felt something. Guilt, hesitation, the pull of blood loyalty. All she felt was rage. I want to be there when you find him. Absolutely not. He sold me, twice. I have a right. You have a right to stay alive, Lucian's voice rose. Which means staying here, under guard, until I eliminate this threat. Like you eliminated the last one? Because that worked so well. His hand shot out, gripping her arm. Not hard enough to hurt, but enough to stop her. Do not test me right now. Or what? You'll lock me in a basement again? Marry me off to the next highest bidder? I'm trying to protect you. I don't want protection. I want revenge. The words hung in the air like a grenade with the pin pulled. Lucian stared at her. Something shifted in his expression. Not anger, recognition. You've changed, he said quietly. You made me change. I made you survive. Same thing. He released her arm, ran a hand through his hair. For the first time since she'd met him, he looked uncertain. If I let you be part of this, he said slowly, you follow my orders. Exactly. No improvisation, no heroics. Agreed? Evelyn's heart hammered. Agreed. Marco, take her inside. Get her cleaned up. I need to make some calls. Hawk. They found Daniel Hart 3 days later. He was hiding in a rented apartment in Trastevere, paid for with money Volkov had wired him. The idiot hadn't even bothered to use a fake name on the lease. Lucien brought 6 men. Marco, Anton, 3 others whose names Evelyn didn't know, and her. She'd argued for a gun. Lucien had refused. Instead, he'd given her a knife, small, sharp, easily concealed, and made her promise she'd only use it if absolutely necessary. She'd promised. Didn't mean she believed it. They approached the apartment at dawn, 3rd floor of a crumbling building that smelled like mildew and broken dreams. Marco picked the lock in under 30 seconds. Inside, her father sat at a tiny kitchen table, eating toast and reading news on a tablet. He looked up when they entered, saw Lucien, saw the guns, saw Evelyn. The toast fell from his hand. Evie, don't. Her voice was ice. Don't you dare say my name. Daniel stood slowly, his hands raised. I can explain. Explain what? She crossed the room in 3 strides. Explain how you sold me to Lucien, then tried to sell me again to Volkov? Explain how you used me as bait in some kind of syndicate pissing contest? Explain how you're still breathing when you should be choking on your own blood. Her father's face crumpled. I didn't have a choice. There's always a choice. You told me that, remember? When I was 12 and got caught cheating on a math test? She laughed bitterly. You said every decision has consequences, that integrity matters, that lying makes you less than human. Evelyn, please. How much? She stepped closer. How much did Volkov offer you? Daniel's eyes darted to Lucien, back to her. 5 million. The number hit her like a fist. 5 million. For your daughter. It wasn't like that? Then what was it like? Her voice rose. Because from where I'm standing, you sold me twice. Once to clear your debts, once for profit. And you did it while I was learning to trust the man you sold me to. While I was trying to survive in a world I didn't understand. While I was... Her voice broke. She hated that. Hated the tears burning in her eyes. Hated that after everything, some part of her still wanted him to be her father, instead of the monster standing in front of her. Daniel took a step toward her. I thought if I got you close to Verano, you'd be protected. Safe. And then when Volkov made the offer, you saw dollar signs. Lucien's voice cut through the room like a blade. You saw a chance to double your profit and took it. I was going to split it with her. Daniel's hands were shaking now. After she was extracted, we'd disappear together, start over somewhere new. I had it all planned. You had nothing planned. Evelyn's voice was dead now, flat. Because I'm not going anywhere with you. I'm not your daughter anymore. I'm not your investment. I'm nothing to you. Evie, no. My name is Evelyn Verano. She said it clearly, deliberately. Let the words settle like stones. And you don't get to call me anything else. Daniel's face went gray. You can't mean that. I mean every word. Lucian stepped forward. You have two choices, Daniel. You can tell me where Volkov is, everything you know, names, locations, plans, or I can take that information by force. Your choice. Daniel looked at his daughter one last time. Whatever he saw in her expression made something in him break. He's in Naples, he whispered. Warehouse district. Building 17. He's got 30 men with him. Maybe more. Thank you. Lucien nodded to Marco. Marco raised his gun. Wait. Evelyn's voice stopped him. I want to do it. Every man in the room turned to stare at her. Lucien's expression was unreadable. Evelyn, he's my father. My choice. She held out her hand. Give me the gun. You don't want to do this. You're wrong. I really, really do. They stood there, locked in silent evaluation. Finally, Lucien took Marco's gun, checked the safety, held it out to her. Evelyn took it. The weight was heavier than she'd expected, cold, absolute. She turned to her father. He was crying now, full, choking sobs. Please, Evie, please, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I never meant. Yes, you did. She raised the gun. Her hands were steady. You meant every bit of it. You just didn't think you'd have to face the consequences. I love you. No, you loved the idea of me, the investment, the asset, but you never loved me. Because if you did, you wouldn't have sold me. Not once, not twice, not ever. Her finger found the trigger. Evelyn, Lucien's voice was quiet. Careful. Once you do this, you can't take it back. I know. It changes you forever. Good. She pulled the trigger. The sound was deafening in the small apartment. Her father's head snapped back, blood sprayed across the wall behind him. His body crumpled to the floor, lifeless, empty, nothing. Evelyn lowered the gun, looked at what she'd done, felt nothing, no guilt, no horror, no grief, just cold, empty satisfaction. Lucien took the gun from her hands. We need to go. She nodded. They left her father's body where it fell. The ride back to the estate was silent. Evelyn sat in the back seat, her hands folded in her lap, blood spatter on her shoes. She should have been shaking, should have been breaking down, should have been something other than this numb, hollow calm. But all she felt was clarity. She'd become exactly what this world required, a survivor who didn't flinch at violence, who didn't hesitate when faced with impossible choices, who put survival above sentiment. She'd become Lucien's wife in every sense of the word. Marco pulled through the estate gates, killed the engine. No one moved. Finally, Anton spoke. You okay? Yes, Evelyn said. You sure? Because you just killed your father. I killed a man who sold me, twice. There's a difference. Anton nodded slowly. Yeah, I guess there is. They got out of the car. Lucien dismissed the others, then turned to Evelyn. Come with me. She followed him inside, through halls she'd walked 100 times, upstairs she knew by heart, to his bedroom, a room she'd never entered before. He closed the door, poured 2 glasses of whiskey, handed her one. Drink. She did. The alcohol burned going down, sharp and grounding. Lucien drank his in one swallow, set the glass down, looked at her with eyes that held something she couldn't name. I'm sorry, he said. For what? For what this life has made you. You didn't make me anything. I chose this. Did you? He stepped closer. Or did I back you into a corner until violence was the only language you spoke? Evelyn met his gaze. Does it matter? Yes. Why? Because I didn't want this for you. His voice cracked. Actually cracked. I wanted you to survive, to adapt, to be strong. But I didn't want you to become like you? He flinched. Evelyn set down her glass, closed the distance between them until they were inches apart. I'm not like you, she said quietly. I'm worse, because you were born into this world. You learned its rules from childhood. You had time to build armor. I was thrown into it at 19 with no preparation, no training, and no choice. So I built my armor from rage and desperation and the kind of survival instinct that doesn't care about morality. I'm not your victim anymore, Lucien. And I'm not your wife. I'm your equal. And that terrifies you. He stared at her. You're right. About which part? All of it. He reached out, his hand cupping her face with a gentleness that seemed impossible from a man who'd killed 7 people in the last 2 weeks. You've become something I didn't expect. Something dangerous. And I've never been more afraid of losing something in my entire life. The words hit her like a physical blow. She'd expected a lot of things from Lucien Verano. Control, manipulation, strategy, cold calculation. Not this. Not vulnerability. Not truth. I killed my father today, she whispered. I know. I didn't hesitate. I know. What does that make me? Lucien's thumb traced her cheekbone. Mine. And then he kissed her. Not demanding, not forceful, just desperate and honest and completely inevitable. Evelyn kissed him back, because somewhere between the wedding and the training and the villa and the gunfire, she'd stopped being his captive and started being his partner. Because he'd given her the tools to survive and trusted her to use them. Because when her father had tried to sell her a second time, Lucien had gone to war to keep her. Because this was the only truth left in her entire life. She belonged to him, and he belonged to her, and everything else was just noise. They broke apart, breathing hard. This doesn't change anything, Evelyn said. It changes everything. Volkov still wants me dead. Then we kill him first. We? Lucien's smile was sharp, dangerous. You just proved you can pull a trigger. Let's see what else you can do. They planned the assault for 48 hours later. Marco laid out the warehouse schematics on Lucien's desk. Anton ran tactical scenarios. Evelyn memorized every entrance, every blind spot, every potential trap. You stay in the car, Lucien said for the 10th time. No. Evelyn, I'm not staying in the car. You want me as your equal? Treat me like one. Equals don't get themselves killed in unnecessary gunfights. Then teach me how to stay alive in them. They stared at each other across the desk. Finally, Marco spoke. She's not wrong. If Volkov sees her, he'll focus on extraction instead of defense. Could give us an advantage. Or get her killed, Lucien snapped. I'm willing to take that risk, Evelyn said. I'm not. It's not your choice. Lucien's hand slammed down on the desk. Everything about you is my choice. Your safety, your future, your life. I own those choices because you gave them to me the day you said yes to this marriage. I gave you compliance, not submission. Evelyn's voice was steel. And if you want me to stay your wife instead of your prisoner, you'll start treating me like someone with agency instead of a fucking asset to be protected. The room went silent. Anton coughed. Marco suddenly found the ceiling fascinating. Lucien's jaw worked. Fine. You come. But you follow orders. Exactly. Agreed? Agreed. And if I tell you to run, you run. If you tell me to run, I'll assume you're dying. So, no. Evelyn, those are my terms. Take them or leave me behind. He stared at her for a long moment. Then, impossibly, he smiled. You're going to get us both killed. Probably. Worth it. That's. They hit the warehouse at 3 a.m. 12 men, 4 cars. Enough firepower to level a small country. Evelyn wore black tactical gear Anton had sized for her, a pistol at her hip, a knife strapped to her thigh. Her hair was pulled back tight. Her hands were steady. She looked like she belonged. The warehouse loomed ahead, dark and silent. Too silent. It's a trap, Marco said. Obviously, Lucien agreed. Which is why we're not going through the front. They split into 3 teams. Marco took the east entrance, Anton the west. Lucien, Evelyn, and 4 others went through the roof. The climb was brutal, 3 stories of rusted fire escape that groaned under their weight, but they made it, cut through the roof access, descended into darkness. The warehouse floor was empty, no guards, no Volkov, just shipping containers stacked like a maze. Where is everyone? One of the men whispered. Evelyn's gut twisted. It's not a trap. What? It's an ambush. He knew we were coming. The light slammed on, blinding, painful. Gunfire erupted from every direction. Evelyn hit the ground, her gun already in her hand, returning fire at shadows she couldn't see. Beside her, Lucian moved like a machine. Aim, shoot, advance, repeat. 2 of their men went down in the first 30 seconds. Fall back, Lucien shouted. They scrambled toward the roof access, made it halfway before the door slammed shut above them. Locked. They were trapped. Volkov's voice echoed through speakers mounted in the rafters. Did you really think I'd make it that easy, Verano? Lucian's expression went murderous. Show yourself, coward. Why? I'm winning. A pause. Tell me, does your little bride know the truth yet? Evelyn's blood went cold. What truth? About why her father really sold her to you. He sold me to pay his debts. Volkov laughed. Is that what Lucien told you? How sweet. No, Kara. Your father sold you because Lucien demanded it. The world stopped. Evelyn turned to Lucien. What is he talking about? Lucien's face was carved from stone. Don't listen to him. Your husband created your father's debts, Volkov continued, lured him into gambling, provided the credit, then called it all due when he wanted something Daniel had. You. That's a lie, Lucien said. Is it? Check his files. The contract your father signed? Written by Lucien's lawyers, the gambling debts, owed to Lucien's casino. The whole thing was a setup. Evelyn's hands started shaking. Lucien, tell me he's lying. Evelyn, tell me. His silence was confirmation. She stepped back, raised her gun, pointed it at his chest. You set this up, all of it. I can explain. You wanted me. So you destroyed my father's life, forced him into debt, gave him no choice but to offer me as payment. Her voice broke. I killed him thinking he'd betrayed me. But it was you. It was always you. He still chose to gamble, Lucien said quietly. He still made the deal. I just provided the opportunity. You manipulated everything. I saw something I wanted, and I took it. That's what I do. Evelyn's finger tightened on the trigger. You made me into a monster for a lie. Evelyn's voice didn't shake. The gun didn't waver. Her finger rested on the trigger with the same steady pressure Anton had taught her, just enough tension to feel the resistance, not enough to fire. Not yet. Lucien stood perfectly still, his hands at his sides, his eyes locked on hers. Around them, gunfire still echoed through the warehouse. Their 2 remaining men had taken cover behind shipping containers, returning fire at shadows. But all of it, the bullets, the chaos, the death, faded into background noise. This moment was just the 2 of them. I didn't make you anything, Lucien said quietly. I gave you tools. You chose what to build with them. Don't. The word came out like a gunshot. Don't you dare try to spin this. You destroyed my father deliberately. You engineered every single piece of this, so I'd have no choice but to say yes to you. Your father destroyed himself the moment he walked into my casino. Lucien's voice was calm, too calm. I simply accelerated the timeline. Why? Her hands were shaking now. She tightened her grip to hide it. Why me? There are thousands of women in the world. Why did you need me specifically? For the first time since she'd met him, Lucien's carefully constructed mask slipped. Something raw flickered across his face, something that looked almost like pain. Because I saw you, he said. 3 years ago. You came to Rome with your father on a business trip. You were 16, wearing a blue dress and arguing with a street vendor about the price of a painting. You didn't back down even when he tried to intimidate you. And I thought... He stopped, swallowed hard. I thought I'd never seen anyone more alive. The confession hit her like a physical blow. You've been planning this for 3 years. Her voice was barely a whisper. Since I was 16. I waited until you were legal. I'm not a monster. She laughed, came out broken and bitter. You're exactly a monster. You just convinced yourself you weren't. Maybe. He took a step toward her. But everything I did to keep you, to make you mine, and I'd do it again. Even knowing what it cost me? Even then. Evelyn's vision blurred. She blinked hard, refusing to let tears fall. Not here. Not now. Not in front of him. I should kill you, she whispered. Yes, you should. You ruined my life. I gave you a new one. You took everything from me and gave you everything I have. His eyes bore into hers. I know what I am, Evelyn. I know what I've done, but I've never lied to you about the man standing in front of you. A man who kills, who manipulates, who takes what he wants without apology. That's who I've always been. The only difference is now you know the full story. The full story? She shook her head. You mean the part where you're a sociopath who stalked a teenager and spent 3 years destroying her family so you could own her? Yes. The simple acknowledgement was somehow worse than a denial. Volkov's voice crackled through the speakers again. Touching reunion. But I'm afraid we're out of time. Surrender the girl, Verano, or everyone in this building dies. Lucien didn't break eye contact with Evelyn. That's not happening. Then you've chosen death. I chose her. Death is just a side effect. More gunfire erupted. Closer this time. Their men were being pushed back, overwhelmed by sheer numbers. They had minutes at best before they were completely surrounded. Evelyn lowered the gun slowly. I hate you. I know. I will never forgive you for this. I know. But if we're going to survive the next 5 minutes, we need to work together. Something that might have been relief crossed his face. What do you need me to do? Create a distraction. I'm going after Volkov. Absolutely not. He wants me alive. That means he won't shoot to kill. You. He'll execute on sight. She ejected the magazine from her pistol, checked the rounds, slammed it back home with practiced efficiency. I'm the only one who can get close enough to end this. You're not trained for this kind of combat. Anton trained me. You trained me. This entire goddamn situation trained me. She met his eyes. And unless you have a better plan in the next 30 seconds, this is what's happening. Lucien stared at her. She could see him calculating angles, risks, probabilities, his mind working through every possible outcome and finding them all unacceptable. Finally, he pulled a compact radio from his belt. Marco, Anton, status. Static. Then Marco's voice, strained. East entrance compromised. We're pinned down. Anton? West side's a killing field. Lost 3 men. Lucien's jaw tightened. Fall back to Rally Point Beta. I'm creating a diversion. Boss, that's suicide. That's an order. He clipped the radio back, looked at Evelyn. You have 2 minutes. If you're not out by then, I'm coming for you. If I'm not out by then, I'm already dead. Then I'll kill everyone responsible and burn this building to the ground. She almost smiled. Romantic. Pragmatic. He cupped her face with both hands, his thumbs tracing her cheekbones like he was memorizing the shape of her. When this is over, we're going to have a very long conversation about trust and manipulation and every lie I've ever told you. But right now, I need you to understand something. What? I love you. I've loved you since that day 3 years ago when you refused to back down from a street vendor. I've loved you through every calculated move, every manipulation, every moment of this entire disaster. And if loving you makes me a monster, then that's what I am. The word should have meant nothing, should have been just another manipulation, another lie in a tower built on lies. But the way he said it, raw and desperate and completely unguarded, hit something deep in her chest. I don't know what to do with that, she whispered. Survive, that's all I'm asking. He kissed her, hard, like he was trying to brand the memory into her skin. Then he released her and stepped back. 2 minutes, he said. And then he was gone, moving through the shadows toward the center of the warehouse, drawing fire, creating chaos, becoming exactly the distraction he'd promised. Evelyn didn't wait. She moved along the perimeter, using the shipping containers for cover, her heart hammering against her ribs, her breath coming in short, controlled bursts. Anton's training kicked in. Scan, assess, advance. Never stay in one place longer than 3 seconds. Volkov's voice echoed again. You can't hide from me, little bride. She ignored it, focused on the sound instead. The speakers were mounted in the rafters, but the microphone had to be somewhere central, somewhere elevated. There. A metal catwalk ran the length of the warehouse about 30 feet up, and standing at the center, surrounded by 6 armed men, was Dmitry Volkov. He was younger than she'd expected, Mid-50s, sharp suit, silver at his temples. He looked more like a corporate executive than a crime lord, but the way his men deferred to him, the casual way he held a pistol like it was an extension of his hand, that told the real story. Evelyn scanned the area, found a service ladder bolted to the wall, partially hidden by stacked crates. Getting up there would be exposed, dangerous, possibly suicidal. She climbed anyway. The metal rungs were cold under her hands. Each step felt too loud, too obvious, but the gunfire below covered the sound. She made it halfway up before one of Volkov's men spotted her. "Sir!" Volkov turned, saw her, smiled. "Hold your fire," he said. "Let her come." Evelyn reached the catwalk, stepped onto the metal grating. Her legs wanted to shake. She locked her knees, kept her hand near her pistol, but didn't draw it. Not yet. "Evelyn Verano," Volkov said, like they were meeting at a cocktail party. "Or do you prefer Hart? I can never remember if women in your generation take their husband's name." "I prefer alive." He laughed. "Fair enough. Walk toward me slowly, hands where I can see them." She did. Each step echoed through the warehouse. Below she could hear Lucian's team engaging Volkov's men. Explosions, gunfire, screaming, the soundtrack of her life now. Volkov studied her as she approached. "You're smaller than I expected. Younger, too. I suppose that's Lucian's type. Fresh, untrained, easy to mold. You don't know anything about me. I know you killed your father 4 days ago. Single shot to the head. Didn't even hesitate." He tilted his head. "That takes a particular kind of person. The question is whether you're that person naturally or whether Verano created you. Does it matter? To me? No, to you?" He shrugged. "That's a question you'll be asking yourself for the rest of your life, however long that is." She stopped 10 feet away, close enough to see the details, the scar along his jaw, the gold watch on his wrist, the way his finger rested just outside the trigger guard of his gun. Relaxed, but ready. "Your father came to me 6 months ago," Volkov said conversationally. "Said he had a daughter Lucian Verano wanted badly enough to engineer an entire debt scheme. Said if I helped him play both sides, we could split the profit." He smiled. "I agreed. Not for the money. I have plenty of that. But because taking something Lucian wants, that's priceless. So this was never about me. It was about hurting him. Everything is about hurting him." Volkov's smile faded. "He killed my brother 10 years ago, over a territory dispute that could have been negotiated. Instead, Lucian put a bullet in his head and threw the body in the Tiber." "I'm sorry." "Are you?" He studied her. "Or are you just saying what you think I want to hear?" "Both, probably." That surprised him. He laughed. "Honest. I like that. Lucian trained you well." "Lucian didn't train me. He just showed me what I needed to become to survive him." "And what's that?" "Someone willing to do whatever it takes." She drew her gun, fast, smooth, exactly like Anton had taught her. But Volkov was faster. His pistol came up, already aimed at her chest. His men mirrored the movement, 6 guns all pointed at her head. Mexican standoff on a catwalk 30 feet above a concrete floor. "You can't shoot all of us," Volkov said calmly. "No, but I can shoot you, and that's enough." "Is it?" He seemed genuinely curious. "You'd die. Right here. Right now. Just to take me with you?" Evelyn's hand didn't shake. "Yes." "Why?" "Because he loves me." The words came out steady, sure. "And if I die, Lucian Verano will spend the rest of his life hunting down everyone you've ever cared about. Your organization, your family, your legacy. He'll erase it all. Not because of some territory dispute or business rivalry, but because you took something that belonged to him." "You sound very certain." "I am." Volkov's expression shifted. Something that might have been respect flickered in his eyes. "You really believe that?" "I know it." "Then you're either very brave or very stupid." "I'm very tired." Evelyn's finger tightened on the trigger. "And I'm done being a chess piece in games played by men who think women are just assets to be traded. So here's what's going to happen. You're going to lower your gun, you're going to call off your men, and you're going to let us walk out of here. or I'm going to shoot you, your men are going to shoot me, and Lucian is going to turn your entire world into ash." Silence. Below, the gunfire had stopped. The warehouse had gone eerily quiet. Then Lucian's voice, amplified by the same speaker system Volkov had been using. "Dmitri, I know you can hear me." Volkov's jaw tightened. "I have 15 men positioned around this building. Every exit is covered, every window, every ventilation shaft. You're trapped." "He's bluffing," one of Volkov's men muttered. "No, he's not," Volkov said quietly. Lucien continued. "You have two choices. Release my wife and walk away with your life. Or keep her, and I'll execute every single person in this building, including you, including my own men if they're in the way. I don't care about casualties. I don't care about collateral damage. The only thing I care about is getting her back." Evelyn's throat tightened. "So what's it going to be, Dmitri? Do we end this like civilized people, or do we burn it all down?" Volkov stared at Evelyn for a long moment. Then slowly, he lowered his gun. "Stand down," he told his men. They hesitated. "Stand down!" The guns lowered. Volkov's expression was unreadable. He really would do it. Burn it all for you. "Yes. That kind of obsession is dangerous. I know. It'll destroy you both eventually." "Probably." He smiled faintly. "You deserve each other." Evelyn kept her gun raised. "Are we done here?" "Almost." Volkov reached into his jacket. Evelyn's finger tightened on the trigger, but he moved slowly, deliberately, pulling out a phone. He unlocked it, showed her the screen. A video. Security footage from 3 years ago. Grainy, black and white. A teenage girl in a blue dress arguing with a street vendor, smiling despite her frustration. Alive in a way that seemed to light up the entire frame. And in the background, barely visible, a man watching her. Silver hair. Expensive suit. Lucienne. The timestamp read July 15th, 3 days before her 17th birthday. "He's been watching you longer than you know," Volkov said quietly. "This wasn't about debt or strategy or business. It was about obsession. Pure, destructive, all-consuming obsession." Evelyn stared at the screen, at the evidence of everything Lucian had admitted, everything she'd suspected but hadn't wanted to believe. "Why are you showing me this?" "Because you should know exactly what you're choosing." Volkov pocketed the phone. "He's not a man, Evelyn. He's a force of nature. And forces of nature don't love. They possess. They consume. They destroy everything they touch." "Maybe." She lowered her gun slowly. "But he's my force of nature." Volkov studied her for a long moment, then nodded once. "Go." She didn't need to be told twice. Evelyn moved past him, past his men, toward the ladder. Her heart hammered. Her hands shook. But she didn't run. Didn't let them see weakness. She climbed down one rung at a time, hit the warehouse floor just as Lucien emerged from behind a shipping container, blood on his shirt, a cut above his eye, but alive. Very much alive. Their eyes met across the distance. He started toward her. She started toward him. They met in the middle. Lucien's hands framed her face, his eyes scanning her for injuries. "You're okay." "I'm fine." "Did he hurt you?" "No." "I heard gunshots." "Lucienne!" She grabbed his wrists. "I'm fine." He pulled her against him, his arms wrapping around her so tightly she could barely breathe. His heart hammered against her ear, fast and erratic, betraying the calm exterior. "If he touched you," his voice was rough, raw. "He didn't." "If he'd hurt you." "He didn't." Lucien pulled back just enough to look at her. "What happened up there?" "He showed me something." Evelyn swallowed hard. "Security footage from 3 years ago of you watching me." His expression went carefully blank. "I see. You've been planning this since I was 16. "Yes." "That's not normal." "I never claimed to be normal." "It's obsessive." "Yes." "It's dangerous." "Yes." She should have been horrified, should have pulled away, should have run as far and fast as possible from a man who'd spent 3 years orchestrating her entire life. Instead, she kissed him, hard, desperate, tasting blood and smoke and the sharp edge of survival. When they broke apart, both breathing hard, Lucien's eyes were dark with something that looked like wonder. Why? He asked. Because I'm just as insane as you are. She laughed, and it came out half-sob. Because you're a monster and a manipulator, and the single worst thing that ever happened to me, and also the best. And I don't know how to reconcile those things, but I know that if I walk away right now, I'll spend the rest of my life wondering what we could have become. We could become something terrible. We already are something terrible. She grabbed his shirt, pulled him closer. The question is whether we're terrible together or terrible alone. Above them, Volkov's voice echoed one last time. Touching. But you should know this isn't over. You humiliated me tonight. I can't let that stand. Lucian's arm tightened around Evelyn. He looked up at the catwalk. Then come for me. See what happens. Not you. Volkov's smile was visible even from this distance. Her. Ice flooded Evelyn's veins. She killed her father, walked into my organization's territory without backup, made demands like she has power. Volkov's tone was almost admiring. She's become interesting, and interesting things attract attention. Touch her and you'll what? Kill me? You had that chance tonight and didn't take it because she was in the way. He laughed. That's your weakness now, Lucian. You've given everyone in our world a target, and eventually someone's going to hit it. The lights cut out, plunging the warehouse into darkness. Evelyn's hand found her gun on instinct. Lucian pulled her behind him, his body a shield, his own weapon already drawn. Marco! He shouted into the darkness. Anton! No response, just silence. And then, from somewhere in the black, a single gunshot. The muzzle flash illuminated the warehouse for a split second, long enough to see men pouring in from every entrance. Dozens of them, too many. It's a trap, Evelyn whispered. I know. Lucien's voice was calm, too calm. The kind of calm that came right before violence. Stay behind me. Move when I move. If I go down, you run. I'm not leaving you, see it? If I go down, you run. That's an order. More gunfire. Closer now. Evelyn could hear boots on concrete, smell gun oil and sweat, and the metallic tang of blood. They were surrounded. Completely, utterly surrounded. Lucian's hand found hers in the darkness, squeezed once. I'm sorry, he said quietly. For what? For all of it. For everything that brought us here. Don't. Her voice cracked. Don't apologize, not now. If we die tonight, we're not dying tonight. Evelyn, we're not dying tonight because I refuse to let our story end in a goddamn warehouse. She squeezed his hand back. We survive. Together. That's the only option. The light slammed back on, blinding, disorienting. When Evelyn's vision cleared, she saw exactly how bad it was. 50 men, maybe more, all armed, all positioned in a perfect circle around them. Volkov stood on the catwalk, looking down at them like a king surveying his conquered territory. Last chance, Verano. Give her to me. Walk away. Live. Lucien didn't hesitate. No. Then you both die. Volkov raised his hand. 50 guns came up. Evelyn's breath caught. This was it. The end. After everything, after the wedding, the training, the violence, the impossible choices, it ended here. She looked at Lucien, found him already looking at her. I love you, she said. His expression softened. I know. Volkov's hand started to drop, and then the warehouse exploded. Not metaphorically, literally. The west wall blew inward in a shower of concrete and rebar. The explosion was deafening, blinding, throwing everyone to the ground. Evelyn hit the floor hard, her ears ringing, her vision white. Lucien's hand never left hers. Through the smoke and chaos, figures poured in through the breach. Armed men in tactical gear, moving with military precision. At the front, a woman Evelyn recognized. Adriana De Luca, the Contessa who taught her how to survive powerful people. Behind her, 24 soldiers. Adriana's voice cut through the chaos. Drop your weapons, now! Volkov's men hesitated, looked to their boss. Volkov stared down at Adriana, his expression stunned. You're supposed to be in Milan. I was. Then Lucien called in a favor. Adriana's smile was sharp. You should have killed him when you had the chance, Dmitri. Now you don't get one. You're making a mistake. The mistake was thinking you could touch Lucian Verano's wife and walk away breathing. She raised her gun. Now, drop your weapons. For a long moment, nothing happened. Then, one by one, Volkov's men lowered their guns. Adriana's soldiers moved in, securing the scene, zip-tying hands, clearing weapons. Lucian pulled Evelyn to her feet. She swayed, her legs shaky, her ears still ringing. You called her? Evelyn managed. While you were on the catwalk, told her if I didn't check in within 10 minutes, blow the west wall and come in shooting. That was your plan? That was my contingency. She wanted to hit him, wanted to kiss him, settled for leaning against him because standing independently seemed impossible right now. Adriana approached, her expression all business. Volkov? Lucian looked up at the catwalk. It was empty. He ran, Adriana said. My men are searching, but let him go. Everyone turned to stare at Lucian. Boss, Marco said, appearing from somewhere in the chaos with a bleeding shoulder, but otherwise intact. We have him cornered. We can end this. No! Lucian's arm tightened around Evelyn. We end this my way, on my terms. When I'm ready. He'll come after her again, Anton pointed out. I know. Lucian looked down at Evelyn, which is why she's going to be ready. Ready how? Evelyn asked. His smile was dangerous. How do you feel about learning everything I know? She should have been terrified, should have said no, should have done literally anything except what she did. She smiled back. When do we start? Lucian's eyes gleamed. Tomorrow. Around them, Adriana's soldiers finished securing the warehouse. Above, sirens wailed in the distance. The Roman police finally responding. Too late, as always. But for once, Evelyn didn't care. Because she'd walked into a trap and walked out alive. Because the man who destroyed her life had just saved it. Because somewhere between the manipulation and the violence and the impossible choices, she'd stopped being a victim and become something else entirely. A survivor. A fighter. Lucian Verano's wife. And if Dmitry Volkov wanted to come for her again, he'd find out exactly what that meant. They walked out of the warehouse together, Lucian's arm around her shoulders, her hand on the gun at her hip. Behind them, Rome burned with the consequences of their choices. Ahead, the future waited. Terrible, violent, uncertain, but theirs. And that was enough. For now, it was more than enough. The sirens grew louder. Lucian looked at her. Ready to go home? Evelyn looked back at the warehouse, at the smoke and the chaos and the bodies that would need explaining. Looked at the man beside her, monster and savior and the single most complicated thing in her life. Home, she repeated. The word tasted different now. Not a prison, not a cage, but something she'd chosen, something she'd fought for, something that was finally, impossibly, hers. Yeah, she said. Let's go home. They disappeared into the Roman night, and somewhere in the darkness, Dmitry Volkov watched them go, his expression carved from stone, his mind already calculating the next move. This wasn't over, not even close. The game had just begun. And Evelyn Verano, the girl who'd been sold, trapped, broken, and rebuilt, was about to learn that surviving the purchase was nothing compared to surviving what came after. But that was a problem for tomorrow. Tonight, she was alive. Tonight, she had won. And tonight, that was. The estate felt different when they returned that night. Evelyn couldn't put her finger on what had changed. The marble floors were still pristine, the frescoed ceilings still beautiful, the armed guards still stationed at every entrance. But something fundamental had shifted, like the entire building had reorganized itself around a new center of gravity. Or maybe it was just her. Gabriella met them at the door, took one look at the blood on Lucian's shirt and the dust coating Evelyn's tactical gear, and simply nodded. Medical supplies are in your office, Don Verano. I've prepared fresh clothes for Mrs. Verano. Thank you, Gabriella. Lucian's voice was steady despite the exhaustion carved into every line of his face. Wake me if Volkov makes contact. Of course. They climbed the stairs in silence. At the landing, Lucian turned toward his office. Evelyn followed. You should rest, he said without looking back. So should you. I need to debrief with Marco and Anton, go through the footage from tonight, start damage control before the police start asking questions we can't answer. Then I'll help. He stopped, turned to face her. Evelyn, you almost died tonight, multiple times. You need sleep. We both almost died. Multiple times. She crossed her arms. And I'm not some delicate thing that needs to be protected from your world anymore. I shot my father in the head 4 days ago. I held a gun on a Russian crime lord an hour ago. I think I can handle a debriefing. Something shifted in his expression. Not quite pride, but close. You've changed. You changed me. No. You did that yourself. He reached out, his fingers brushing her cheek. I just gave you the circumstances. You chose who to become. The touch sent electricity through her. Even now, covered in warehouse dust and other people's blood, exhausted to the point of collapse, her body responded to him with an intensity that should have terrified her. Maybe it did. Maybe she didn't care anymore. Come on, he said quietly. Let's get cleaned up first. Then we'll talk. They showered separately, Lucien in his ensuite, Evelyn in hers. The hot water felt like absolution, washing away the physical evidence of the night, even as the memories burned themselves deeper into her mind. The gunfire, the darkness, the moment she'd thought they were both going to die. The way Lucien had refused to let her go even when survival meant abandoning her. She dressed in the clothes Gabriella had left, soft cotton pants and a cashmere sweater that probably cost more than most people's monthly rent. Tied her wet hair back, stared at herself in the mirror. The girl who'd arrived in Rome 5 months ago was gone. That wide-eyed 19-year-old who'd believed in fairness and justice and the fundamental goodness of people had been dismantled piece by piece, replaced by someone harder, sharper. Someone who could pull a trigger without hesitation. Someone who looked an awful lot like the woman staring back at her now. She found Lucien in his office, already dressed in fresh clothes, his silver hair still damp. Marco and Anton were there too, along with Adriana De Luca, all of them gathered around a laptop showing security footage from the warehouse. Estimate 42 hostiles neutralized, Marco was saying. 12 escaped with Volkov, including his top lieutenants. The rest are either in custody or dead. The police? Lucien asked. Handled. Adriana's connections in the department are spinning it as a gang war between Russian factions. Your name won't come up. Good. Lucien looked up as Evelyn entered. Something in his eyes softened. You should be resting. I'm fine. She moved to stand beside him, her hand finding his shoulder. The gesture was unconscious, automatic. What did I miss? Adriana answered. Volkov's gone underground. We're tracking his known properties, but he's smart enough not to use them. He'll surface eventually, but it could take weeks. Or he could strike first, Anton added grimly. He's wounded, humiliated. Men like him don't let that stand. Let him strike. Lucien's voice was cold, absolute. We'll be ready. Will we? Marco's tone was careful. Boss, no disrespect, but Volkov just demonstrated he can get men inside our perimeter. He compromised the Amalfi Villa. He knew our movements tonight before we made them. We have a leak. The room went silent. Evelyn felt Lucien's shoulder tense under her hand. You're sure? There's no other explanation. He had too much information, too much tactical advantage. Marco's expression was grim. Someone on the inside is feeding him intel. Who? Adriana's question was sharp. That's what we need to find out. Marco pulled up a different file on the laptop. I've compiled a list of everyone who had access to operational details over the last 6 months. It's a short list. 23 people. Lucien scanned the names. His jaw tightened. These are people I've worked with for years, people I trust. One of them is a traitor. Marco's tone left no room for doubt. And until we identify them, everyone is suspect. Even us? Anton gestured between himself and Marco. Even us. The implications settled over the room like a burial shroud. They couldn't trust each other, they couldn't function. And Volkov knew that. This wasn't just about Evelyn or revenge. This was about dismantling Lucien's entire organization from the inside out. Evelyn spoke before she could stop herself. What if we give him what he wants? Everyone turned to stare at her. Excuse me? Lucien's voice was very, very quiet. Not actually, she clarified quickly. But make him think we are. Set a trap. Use me as bait. Absolutely not. Hear me out. She moved around the desk to face him directly. Volkov wants me because I'm your weakness. Fine. Let's confirm that. Let him think he's winning. Draw him out into the open where we can end this. You're suggesting we fake your abduction. Adriana's tone was considering.
I'm suggesting we give him exactly what he expects. A vulnerable target. An opportunity too good to pass up. And when he takes the bait... Evelyn's eyes locked on Lucien's. We destroy him. Lucien stood abruptly. Everyone out! Boss, Marco started. Out! Now! They filed out. Marco reluctant, Anton concerned, Adriana's expression unreadable. The door closed with a heavy click. Evelyn stood her ground as Lucien crossed to her, his movements controlled but barely containing something volcanic. You want to use yourself as bait, he said flatly. Yes. To draw out a man who's already tried to kill you twice. Yes. A man who wants to torture information out of you about my organization before executing you and sending me the video. She flinched but didn't back down. Yes. His hands gripped her shoulders, not hard enough to hurt, but firm enough to make his point. Do you understand what you're suggesting? The risk involved? Do you understand that if we don't end this, we'll spend the rest of our lives looking over our shoulders? She grabbed his wrists. Volkov won't stop. He'll keep coming, keep attacking, keep using me as leverage against you. The only way to break that cycle is to force a confrontation on our terms. And if something goes wrong, then you do what you promised. Burn it all down. Lucien's eyes searched hers. You've become reckless. I've become practical. There's a difference. Practical would be running, disappearing, starting over somewhere Volkov can't find you. And leave you? She shook her head. That's not an option anymore. Why not? Because... She stopped, swallowed hard. The words caught in her throat, too big and too true to say easily. Because you're right, about the obsession, about what we've become. It's dangerous and destructive and probably going to get us both killed eventually. But I don't care. Because for the first time in my life, I'm not just surviving, I'm choosing. And I choose this. I choose you. His grip on her shoulders loosened. His forehead dropped to rest against hers, and she could feel him shaking. Actually, shaking. I've destroyed you, he whispered. You've remade me. That's the same thing. No, it's not. She pulled back just enough to meet his eyes. Destruction is what my father did. Manipulation without purpose. Selfishness without consequence. What you did was give me the tools to become someone who could survive in your world. Someone who could stand beside you instead of behind you. That's not destruction. That's transformation. Evelyn, I love you. The words came out steady. Sure. I don't know when it happened. Maybe it was when you gave me the choice to run in that piazza. Maybe it was when you went to war to protect me. Maybe it was just 5 minutes ago when you threw yourself between me and 50 guns without hesitation. But it happened, and I'm done pretending it didn't. Lucien's control finally shattered. He kissed her with a desperation that bordered on violence, his hands tangling in her hair, pulling her against him like he could physically merge them into one person. She kissed him back just as fiercely, tasting blood where her teeth caught his lip, not caring, needing this connection more than air. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, his eyes were black with something that looked like anguish. If we do this, he said roughly, if we use you as bait and something goes wrong, I won't survive it. Do you understand that? Losing you would destroy me in ways Volkov couldn't even imagine. Then we don't let anything go wrong. That's not how these things work. Then we make it work. She grabbed his face with both hands, forcing him to look at her. You said you've loved me for 3 years, that you engineered my entire life to make me yours. Fine. Now prove it. Trust me to be your partner instead of your possession. Let me help end this. The war played out across his face. Control versus surrender, logic versus emotion. The man he'd been versus the man she was forcing him to become. Finally, he nodded once. We do this together, every step. No secrets. No secrets, she agreed. And if at any point I think you're in real danger, we abort, immediately. Agreed. He kissed her again, softer this time, almost reverent. You terrify me. She smiled against his mouth. Good. That makes us even. Icham. They spent the next 3 days planning. The trap was elegant in its simplicity. Evelyn would attend a charity gala in Milan. Public event, high profile, lots of security but not impenetrable. Lucien would stay in Rome, creating the appearance of separation. Volkov's spy would report the opportunity. He'd make his move, and they'd be waiting. He'll expect an ambush, Marco pointed out during one of their strategy sessions. Of course he will. Lucien traced a finger across the Milan venue schematic, which is why our actual ambush will be 3 layers deeper than he anticipates. Adriana had secured the venue, an art gallery owned by one of her allies. They'd control the guest list, the security, the exits. Every variable would be managed, manipulated, turned into an advantage. Except the human one. We still haven't identified the leak, Anton said quietly on the second day. Whoever it is, they'll report this plan to Volkov. I know. Lucien's expression was granite. Which is why only the 6 of us know the full picture. Everyone else gets pieces, compartmentalized information. If Volkov knows everything, we'll know who told him. It was ruthless, efficient, and it felt like exactly the kind of chess move that had brought Evelyn into Lucien's life in the first place. She was learning to think like him now. See angles and probabilities instead of just people. It should have bothered her more than it did. The night before the gala, Lucien found her on the terrace, staring out at Rome's lights. Second thoughts? He asked, handing her a glass of wine. 100th thoughts, maybe. She took the glass but didn't drink. I keep thinking about what Volkov said, about you being a force of nature, about possession versus love. And I don't know if he's wrong. She turned to face him. You spent 3 years engineering my life. You manipulated my father into debt specifically to get to me. You've admitted that everything, the marriage, the training, the protection, it was all about ownership. Yes. So how do I know this isn't just another manipulation? That you're not using the idea of partnership to make me more compliant, more invested in staying? Lucien was quiet for a long moment. Then he set down his own glass and pulled something from his pocket. A small key. What's that? Evelyn asked. The key to my safe, where I keep your passport, your original identification, documents that prove your legal guardianship can be dissolved. He pressed the key into her palm. Take it. Right now, tonight, you could walk into my office, get your papers, and disappear. I wouldn't stop you. I wouldn't chase you. I'd let you go. She stared at the key. Why? Because you asked a fair question. And the only way to prove I'm not manipulating you is to give you a real choice. Not the illusion of one. Not a choice between bad options. A genuine free choice to leave. And if I use it? His smile was sad. Then I'll spend the rest of my life knowing I loved you enough to let you go. That'll have to be enough. Evelyn closed her hand around the key. It was small, light, completely insignificant, and yet it changed everything. Because this was the choice she'd wanted from the beginning. Real agency, real power. She walked to the edge of the terrace, could see the gates from here, the guards, the road beyond that led to freedom. She thought about her life before Rome, the struggling restaurant, her father's lies, college applications she'd sent to schools she couldn't afford, a future that had felt small and prescribed and safe. Then she thought about the woman she'd become, someone who could negotiate with crime lords, who could pull a trigger without hesitation, who could stand in a room full of Italy's most dangerous people and not just survive but thrive, someone who'd chosen to love a monster and been loved by one in return. She turned back to Lucien, held out the key. I don't want this. His expression didn't change. You should keep it in case you change your mind. I won't. You might. Lucien. She pressed the key back into his hand. I don't want an escape route. I want a partnership. And partnerships don't work when one person is always waiting for the other to run. He stared at the key like it was a live grenade. You're choosing this, freely. Yes. Even knowing what I am, what I've done. Especially knowing that. She stepped closer. Because you're also the man who went to war for me, who trusted me with a gun when I could have shot you, who's giving me real choices even though it terrifies you. That's the man I'm choosing. Lucien's control fractured. He pulled her into his arms, his face buried in her hair, his breathing unsteady. "If something happens tomorrow," he started, "nothing's going to happen. But if it does, then we face it together." She pulled back to look at him. "That's what partners do." He kissed her, soft, reverent, like she was something precious instead of something owned. And for the first time since she'd stepped off that plane in Rome, Evelyn felt truly free. Not because she could leave, but because she was choosing to stay. The Milan Gala was exactly as advertised, elegant, crowded, dripping with wealth and power. Evelyn arrived in a midnight blue gown that cost more than a car, her hair swept up, diamonds at her throat. She looked like she belonged in this world. Maybe she did now. Adriana stayed close, playing the role of friend and chaperone. Marco and Anton were positioned as security, visible but not intrusive. A dozen more of Lucian's people were scattered throughout the gallery, invisible to casual observers but ready to move the moment things went wrong. Because they would go wrong. That was the point. Evelyn made the rounds, smiling at strangers, making small talk about art she didn't care about, playing the part of Lucian Verano's wife attending a social function alone. The bait was set. Now they waited for Volkov to bite. 2 hours into the event, Evelyn excused herself to the restroom. Adriana followed at a discreet distance, speaking quietly into her earpiece. The hallway was empty, too empty. Evelyn's instinct screamed warning a half-second before the lights cut out. She dropped low, her hand going to the small pistol strapped to her thigh beneath the gown. Anton had insisted. She'd agreed. Now she was grateful. "Contact," Adriana's voice hissed in the darkness. "North corridor, 6 hostiles." Gunfire erupted. Close, too close. Evelyn pressed herself against the wall, her heart hammering, her training kicking in. Scan the dark. Listen for movement. Don't fire until you have a target. Someone grabbed her arm. She twisted, brought her gun up. "It's me," Marco's voice. "Come on, we need to move." "Where's Adriana?" "Engaging hostiles, move!" They ran through corridors Evelyn had memorized during the planning sessions, left at the sculpture gallery, right at the stairwell, down one floor to the service exit where a car was supposed to be waiting. The exit door burst open. 3 men poured through, Russian accents, Volkov's men. Marco shoved Evelyn behind him, returning fire, dropping 2 before the third put a bullet in his shoulder. Marco went down hard. Evelyn didn't hesitate. She stepped out from behind cover, raised her pistol, and put 2 rounds center mass. Then the man dropped. She moved to Marco, helped him up. "Can you walk?" "Yeah, shoulders hit, but I'm good." He grimaced. "You're getting too good at this." "Blame my teachers." They made it to the exit. The car was there, engine running, just as planned. "Too easy," something in Evelyn's mind whispered. "This is too easy." She was right. The driver turned around, and it was Gabriella. Evelyn's world stopped. "Hello, Mrs. Verano," Gabriella said softly. "I'm sorry it has to be this way." Then she raised a gun and shot Marco point blank. Marco's body hit the ground. Evelyn screamed, tried to bring her own gun up, but someone grabbed her from behind, wrenching the weapon from her hand, forcing a cloth over her mouth. Chemicals. Sweet and cloying. Her vision blurred. The last thing she saw was Gabriella's sad smile. "He'll come for you," Gabriella said. "And when he does, Mr. Volkov will be waiting." Then darkness swallowed everything. Evelyn woke to pain. Her wrists were zip-tied to a metal chair. Her ankles, too. Blood crusted on her temple where she'd hit something during the abduction. The room was concrete and windowless, lit by a single overhead bulb. A basement, maybe a warehouse, somewhere industrial and isolated, somewhere no one would hear her scream. She tested the zip ties. Tight, professional, no easy escape. Footsteps on stairs. The door opened. Dmitry Volkov walked in, impeccably dressed as always, followed by 2 guards. "Good morning, Mrs. Verano." He pulled up a chair, sat down across from her like they were having coffee. "How's the head?" Evelyn spat blood at his feet. "Where's Marco?" "Dead, I'd imagine. Gabriella's not known for leaving loose ends." "Gabriella." The name tasted like poison. "She's been working for you." "For 3 years, yes, since before you even arrived in Rome." Volkov smiled. "She's been quite useful. All those little details about Lucian's operations, his movements, his security protocols.
She even helped coordinate your father's second sale. Brilliant woman. 3 years. The same length of time Lucian had been planning for Evelyn. The symmetry was almost funny. Lucian will kill you for this, Evelyn said flatly.
Probably. But first, he'll have to find you. And even then, he'll have to choose between saving you and saving himself. Volkov leaned forward. That's the real trap, you see. I've sent him your location. He knows exactly where you are. He also knows I have 30 men here, that he's outnumbered, that coming for you is suicide. He'll come anyway.
Yes, because he's obsessed. Volkov's expression was almost pitying, and that obsession will destroy him. He'll walk into my trap knowing it's a trap because the alternative is leaving you here. And when he does, I'll execute both of you, slowly, painfully, as a lesson to anyone else who thinks they can humiliate me and walk away. Evelyn forced herself to smile. You talk a lot for someone who's about to die. Bold words from a woman tied to a chair. Bold facts from someone who knows Lucian Verano better than you do. She met his eyes. You think this is a trap. It's not. It's an invitation, and he's going to accept it. And when he does, you'll learn the difference between obsession and love. Volkov studied her. What difference is that?
Obsession is controlled, calculated, strategic. It has limits. She leaned forward as far as the restraints allowed. Love doesn't. Love is the thing that makes a man burn down the entire world just to save one person. And you've given Lucien Verano permission to do exactly that. For the first time, doubt flickered across Volkov's face. Then his phone rang. He answered it, listened. His expression hardened. Understood. He hung up. Looked at Evelyn. Your husband just drove through my outer perimeter, alone. No backup, no tactical team, just him and a gun. Told you. He's committing suicide. No, he's choosing me. Volkov stood abruptly. Bring her upstairs. I want her to watch him die. The guards untied her from the chair, retied her hands behind her back, and hauled her to her feet. Pain shot through her legs. She'd been unconscious for hours. Circulation cut off. She stumbled, but didn't fall. They dragged her upstairs to what looked like an abandoned factory floor. Windows 20 feet up showed afternoon light. Catwalks crisscrossed above, and positioned throughout the space, at least 20 armed men. All their weapons pointed at the single entrance, where Lucien Verano would have to walk through. Volkov positioned Evelyn front and center, a guard on each side. When he sees you, he'll hesitate. That's when we kill him. He won't hesitate. Everyone hesitates when the person they love is in danger. Not him. Evelyn's voice was certain, because he knows I can handle it. Volkov frowned. Handle what? The windows above exploded inward. Glass rained down as 6 figures rappelled through on tactical lines. Adriana, Anton, and 4 others Evelyn recognized from Lucian's inner circle. All armed, all firing. The warehouse erupted into chaos. Volkov's men scattered, returning fire, but they'd been positioned wrong, all facing the main entrance, none expecting an assault from above. Evelyn didn't wait. She drove her elbow back into her left guard's throat, dropped low as he stumbled, swept his legs, grabbed his dropped weapon. The second guard tried to grab her. She shot him in the knee. He went down screaming. Volkov lunged for her. She pivoted, brought the gun up. The main entrance blew open, not with explosives, with a car. A black sedan smashed through the reinforced doors, metal shrieking, glass shattering, driving straight into the center of the room before crashing into a support column. The driver's door opened. Lucien Verano stepped out. His suit was immaculate, his silver hair perfect, his expression carved from something beyond human. He held a single pistol, and he started killing. Methodical, efficient. No wasted movement. Every shot found a target. Every target dropped. Evelyn had seen him fight before. This was different. This was a man who'd stopped pretending to be civilized. This was the monster uncaged. Volkov grabbed Evelyn from behind, his arm around her throat, his gun pressed to her temple. Stop, stop, or I kill her! Lucian didn't stop. He killed the last 3 men between him and Volkov with 3 shots so fast they sounded like one. Then he pointed his gun at Volkov's head. Let her go. You'll shoot through her to get to me. Volkov's voice shook. You're insane enough to do it.
You're right. I am. Lucian's eyes met Evelyn's. But she's not. Evelyn understood. She drove her head back into Volkov's nose, felt the crunch. He screamed, his grip loosening. She twisted free, dropped to the floor. Lucian fired. The bullet took Volkov in the shoulder, spinning him around, his own weapon clattering away. Evelyn grabbed it, stood, pointed it at Volkov's head. Lucien lowered his gun. Your choice. She looked down at Dmitry Volkov, the man who'd tried to buy her, tried to kill her, tried to destroy everything she'd fought to build, the man who'd made the mistake of thinking she was Lucian's weakness instead of his strength. You were right about one thing, she said quietly. Lucien and I deserve each other. She pulled the trigger. The sound echoed through the warehouse. Volkov's body hit the ground, and it was over. Well, the aftermath was a blur. Adriana's team secured the building. The police arrived, paid off in advance. Bodies were removed. Evidence disappeared. By the time the sun set, it was like the battle had never happened, except for Gabriella. They found her in a safe house on the city's outskirts, already gone. She'd taken her payment from Volkov and disappeared. Lucien's people were searching, but Evelyn knew the truth. They'd never find her. Some ghost knew how to vanish. Marco survived. The bullet had hit his shoulder, not his heart. He was in surgery but expected to recover. Evelyn sat in the hospital waiting room while Lucien handled the cleanup, her hands still shaking from adrenaline crash. Anton found her there. You okay? He asked. She laughed. It came out hollow. I just killed 2 people in 1 week. I don't think okay applies anymore. You did what you had to do. That's what everyone keeps saying. Because it's true. He sat beside her. You know what the difference is between you and Volkov? Between you and your father? What? They used people, discarded them when they were done. You fight for them. He gestured toward the operating room where Marco was fighting for his life. You could have run tonight, could have saved yourself. But you stayed, fought, made sure the people on your side made it out alive. That's not a monster, Evelyn. That's a leader. The word settled over her like a weight, a mantle she hadn't asked for but couldn't refuse. Lucien found them an hour later. He looked exhausted, blood on his shirt, shadows under his eyes, but whole. He crossed to Evelyn, pulled her to her feet, and held her without speaking. She held him back just as tightly. It's done, he said quietly. Volkov's organization is scattered. His lieutenants are either dead or cooperating. The threat is neutralized. For now, Evelyn said. For now, he agreed. There will always be another threat, another Volkov. That's the cost of this life. I know. He pulled back to look at her. You could still leave. Take that key. Walk away from all of this. Start over somewhere safe. We both know there's no such thing as safe. She cupped his face. Not for people like us. The only choice is whether to face the danger alone or together. Together is more dangerous. Maybe, but it's also the only thing worth fighting for. Lucien kissed her, soft, reverent, like she was the only good thing in a world full of darkness. Maybe she was, or maybe they were both just too broken to know the difference anymore. 6 months later, Evelyn stood on the terrace of a coastal villa overlooking the Amalfi Sea. Not the safe house. Lucien had burned that place to the ground after the breach. This was new, secure, theirs. The sunset painted the water in shades of gold and crimson. Behind her, she could hear construction crews working on the foundation's new building, a legitimate venture, something Lucien had started at her insistence. The Verano Foundation, helping victims of predatory lending rebuild their lives. The irony wasn't lost on either of them. Lucien joined her on the terrace, 2 glasses of wine in hand. He'd aged in the months since Volkov's death, more silver in his hair, deeper lines around his eyes. But he'd also softened in ways that surprised them both. The architect says the foundation building will be ready in 3 months, he said. Good. We've got 15 families on the waiting list already. 16. Another application came in this morning. He handed her a glass. A restaurant owner in Naples, gambling debts, predatory interest. Sound familiar? She took the wine but didn't drink. Did you approve it? I told them to talk to you. It's your foundation. Our foundation. Your vision. I'm just funding it. Evelyn smiled.
That's growth. That's you changing me into someone I don't entirely recognize. But his tone was affectionate. Though I suppose that makes us even. She turned to face him fully. Do you regret it? Any of it? Lucian was quiet for a long moment. I regret the pain I caused, the manipulation, the lies. I regret that I didn't just introduce myself that day in the piazza 3 years ago and let you make a real choice. I wouldn't have chosen you, not then.
I know. That's why I did it the way I did. He set down his glass. But I don't regret where we ended up. I can't. Because despite everything, you're the best thing that ever happened to me. Even though I'm a constant threat to your control, especially because of that. He pulled something from his pocket, a small box. Which brings me to this, Evelyn's breath caught. Lucien, I know we're already married, but that marriage was forced, coerced, built on lies. He opened the box, revealing a platinum band set with a single perfect diamond. I want to do it again, the right way, with you choosing me freely. No contracts, no debts, just two broken people deciding to be broken together. Tears blurred her vision. That's the worst proposal I've ever heard. It's honest. It's terrible. Will you marry me anyway? She looked at the ring, at him, at the life they'd built from the ashes of everything they'd both been before. It wasn't perfect. It probably never would be. They both carried too much darkness for that, but it was theirs, chosen, earned, real. Yes, she said, but I'm writing my own vows. He smiled, genuine and unguarded and completely hers. I wouldn't have it any other way. He slid the ring on her finger. It fit perfectly. Of course it did. Lucien Verano didn't do anything without meticulous planning. She kissed him as the sun dipped below the horizon, painting their future in shades of gold and shadow. Behind them, in the villa, their life waited. The foundation, the security team, the legitimate businesses slowly replacing the criminal ones. The long, difficult work of building something real from the wreckage of who they'd been. But here, now, on this terrace overlooking the sea, they were just two people who'd found each other in the darkest possible way, and chosen to stay anyway. I love you, Evelyn whispered against his mouth. I know, Lucien said, and I'm going to spend the rest of my life earning that love instead of demanding it. Good. She pulled back to look at him. Because I'm going to spend the rest of mine making sure you do. Shayak. A year after that, Evelyn stood in the foundation's new building, watching families sign lease agreements for interest-free business loans, watching people get second chances they'd never had before. Her hand rested on the gentle swell of her stomach. 5 months along. A girl, the ultrasound had said. Lucien wanted to name her after his mother. Evelyn had agreed, but only if they added Rose. After Evelyn's mother, the one good memory from a childhood full of lies. The baby kicked. Strong, insistent, a fighter already. Evelyn smiled. Behind her, Lucien appeared, his hand covering hers on their daughter. How are you feeling? Tired, hormonal, weirdly happy. Weirdly? I'm pregnant with the child of a man who bought me to settle my father's gambling debt. That should horrify me. Instead, I'm decorating nurseries and reading parenting books. She leaned back against him. I think I've lost my mind. Or found it. He kissed her temple. You're allowed to be happy, Evelyn, even if the path here was twisted. Is that what we're calling it? Twisted? What would you call it? She thought about the girl who'd stepped off that plane in Rome, naive, terrified, unprepared for the world she was walking into. She thought about who that girl had become, the choices she'd made, the lines she'd crossed, the person she'd built from the wreckage of everything she'd thought she knew. Necessary, she said finally. Every terrible, impossible, beautiful moment of it was necessary to become who I am now. And who are you now? She turned in his arms. Evelyn Verano, wife, philanthropist, soon-to-be mother, and occasionally someone who still knows how to pull a trigger when necessary. He laughed, the sound rare and precious. Perfect. Hardly. Perfect for me. And maybe that was the truth they'd both been circling for years. Not that they were perfect,
but that they were perfect for each other. Two people damaged enough to understand darkness, strong enough to choose light. The foundation's doors opened. Another family walked in. Another second chance beginning. Evelyn watched them, her hand on her daughter, her husband's arms around her, and let herself feel something she'd thought she'd lost forever in that Roman warehouse. Hope, not the naive kind she'd carried before. This was harder. Earned. Built on the understanding that the world was brutal and people were broken, and sometimes the only way to survive was to become something you never thought you could be. But hope nonetheless. "What are you thinking?" Lucian asked quietly. "That I should hate this life. Hate you. Hate every choice that brought me here. But I don't." She turned to face him fully. "I should. It would be easier, simpler. But life isn't simple. People aren't simple. Love isn't simple. And maybe that's okay." "Maybe?" "Definitely." She kissed him. "Thank you." "For what?" "For giving me tools instead of chains, for trusting me to become your equal instead of keeping me as your possession, for loving me enough to let me choose." His eyes were bright. "You gave me something too." "What's that?" "A reason to be better than what I was." He placed his hand over hers on her stomach. "Her, this, a future that's about building instead of destroying." Their daughter kicked again, as if agreeing. And standing there in the foundation they'd built from the ashes of their broken beginning, Evelyn understood the final truth of their story. It hadn't started with love. It had started with control. But it ended with choice. And maybe, just maybe, that was enough. Epilogue. 5 years later, Evelyn stood on a different terrace, watching a small girl with silver-streaked dark hair chase butterflies through a garden that had once been a prison. Rose Verano was 4 years old, fearless, and had her father's eyes and her mother's stubborn refusal to accept the word no. She was perfect. Behind Evelyn, the villa had been transformed. No more armed guards at every entrance. No more locked doors. Just a home where a family lived and loved and occasionally entertained colleagues from the foundation. Lucian had stepped back from the remnants of his criminal empire 3 years ago. Let his lieutenants divide the territory while he focused on legitimate business. The transition hadn't been clean. There'd been challenges, threats, one attempt on his life that had ended with 3 bodies, and a very pointed message about what happened to people who threatened the Verano family. But it was done. He was done. They both were. The darkness they'd built their relationship in had become the foundation for something brighter. Not perfect, not easy, but real. Evelyn felt arms slide around her waist. Lucien's chin rested on her shoulder. "She's going to be a handful," he murmured. "She already is. I wonder where she gets that from." "You, definitely you." He laughed. "Liar." Rose spotted them and came running, butterfly forgotten, her small legs pumping. "Mama! Papa! Watch this!" She proceeded to do a cartwheel that was more flail than form, but they applauded anyway. "Beautiful, Piccola," Lucian called. "The best one yet," Evelyn added. Rose beamed and ran off to attempt another. "Do you ever think about it?" Evelyn asked quietly. "About how we started?" "Every day." "Do you regret it?" Lucien was silent for a long moment. "I regret the pain, the manipulation, the way I forced your hand. But the outcome." He turned her to face him. "Never. You're the only truly good thing I've ever created. I created myself." "You did. I just provided the circumstances." He kissed her forehead. "And I'll spend the rest of my life being grateful you chose not to destroy me when you had the chance. The day's not over yet." He smiled. True. They stood together, watching their daughter play in a garden that had once been a symbol of captivity and was now simply home. And Evelyn thought about the girl she'd been, 19, terrified, convinced her life was over. She'd been right, that life had ended, but from its ashes, something stronger had emerged, something forged in fire and blood and impossible choices. A woman who knew her own strength, who could be soft and brutal in the same breath, who'd learned that love didn't erase darkness, it just gave you someone to face it with. "I love you," she said. "I know," Lucien replied. "And I love you, even though you're planning to make me eat vegetables for dinner."
It's called taking care of you. It's called torture. Same thing. He laughed, and the sound carried across the garden, mixing with their daughter's giggles and the sound of waves against the shore. And in that moment, despite everything they'd been through, everything they'd done, all the lines they'd crossed, Evelyn was happy. Not in spite of her story, but because of it. Because she'd been broken and rebuilt. Because she'd been owned and chose to stay. Because she'd faced the darkness and come out the other side still capable of love. This was her life now. Not the one she'd imagined, the one she'd earned. And that made all the difference. The end. Some love stories begin with a glance across a crowded room. Others begin with manipulation, coercion, and the systematic destruction of everything you thought you knew. This was both. And somehow, impossibly, that was enough.